even then confirmed bombing the towns in question at the time in question, insisting some unidentified other Air Force did a civilian killing. Zencash has changed their name to Horizon to better represent their transition from a cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They are working towards the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizon platform. The unique spelling of Horizon is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remain ZEN. Learn more at horizon.global and join the Horizon community. HORIZEN.global. UPI reports Sears, which filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy last month, has listed 505 stores it hopes to sell to a new owner in an effort to stop them from closing. The bankrupt retailer identified the stores that it plans to sell in a bankruptcy court filing on Wednesday, though it is searching for new owners to keep those stores open. Sears hasn't ruled out liquidation, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. The company received court approval a week ago to sell its best-performing stores after receiving previous approval to start closing sales at 142 unprofitable stores, according to the Chicago Tribune. December 15th is the deadline for Sears to receive an initial bid for the stores it identified this week. The deadline for other buyers to submit bids is December 28th. The auction is set for January 14th. The 132-year-old company, with 506 locations, including 482 full-line department stores as well as 360 Kmart stores, according to a public filing, announced its Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in mid-October. When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Reuters reports the Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday kickoff of the U.S. holiday shopping season showed the increasing preference for online purchases as more Americans opted to stay home and use their smartphones while sales and traffic at brick-and-mortar stores declined. The ongoing shift to online shopping has forced retailers across the country to invest heavily in boosting their e-commerce businesses and also highlights the impact of early holiday promotions and year-round deals on consumer spending. The weekend also redefined the importance of Black Friday. For the past few years, Black Friday was believed to be waning in importance, but it is now turning into a day when shoppers do not necessarily flock to stores but spend heavily online. Bill Park, a partner with Deloitte and Touche LP, said online sales are starting to complement in-store shopping over the weekend, and for shoppers and retailers, the two platforms are starting to converge. Online sales rose more than 23%, crossing $6 billion on Black Friday, according to data from Adobe Analytics, which tracks transactions at 80 of the top 100 U.S. retailers. On Thanksgiving, it estimated sales grew 28% to $3.7 billion. Preliminary data from analytics firm Retail Next showed net sales at brick-and-mortar stores fell 4 to 7% over the 2 days, while traffic fell 5 to 9%, continuing the trend of recent years. No data was yet available for actual spending in stores. Data from retail research firm ShopperTrack also showed that visits to stores fell a combined 1% during Thanksgiving and Black Friday compared to the same days in 2017. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Right now, it's looking like tonight's record $500 million Powerball drawing could be cancelled, as embarrassed lottery officials have admitted they lost the balls. Douglas Bronstein, deputy director of the Multi-State Lottery Association, addressed the press moments ago. We have a quote. "We know how important the balls are to a successful drawing. I saw them the other day, and I'm sure they'll turn up somewhere." Bronstein says it's usually marketing director Ben Callahan's job to keep an eye on the balls, but when reached for comment, Callahan said he just sits next to the balls. It's not his job to know where they are every second of every day. According to Bronstein, it's crucial they find the balls before tonight's drawing. Quote, "We'd love to use different balls, but these ones have the numbers on them." Bronstein added that once they figure out where the balls are, they promise to keep them in some sort of case instead of just lying around the office. When we return, we'll meet some of the undeterred Powerball superfans who are camping out before the big drawing dressed as their favorite numbers.
This is the Onion News Network.
This is Free talk live, and you can call in and talk live to us with whatever is on your mind. The us in studio tonight is Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And apparently, it's not Rome that's burning. Apparently, Paris is burning because of some riots that happened. There's not a lot that I will say about the Franks, but they do know how to throw a good riot. And this one apparently has something to do with some kind of fuel tax.
Yeah, there were about 5,000 demonstrators went to the nation's capital to protest the fuel tax, and it turned violent.
And they protested that by lighting stuff on fire and presumably fueling that fire with gas that they paid tax on.
And they're also asking for the president of France to resign.
Okay. So... Well, what are the details here?
Well, the president of France wanted the extra tax to convince people to use other modes of transportation. This has to do with climate change. And the protesters were saying that the president wasn't paying attention to the concerns of the average people. They need to be able to get around. They have day-to-day concerns, and he wasn't paying enough attention to those.
All right. So let me sort of, I guess here, play presidential advocate, which I don't do very often, but don't presidents generally have more important things to do than pay attention to every individual person in their country's daily concerns?
Well, this is a lot of people, and this is a common concern for anybody is how much you're paying for tax. Also, it is a little different in places like France. Their federal government, because it's a smaller country, is not as decentralized as in the United States, so their federal government is going to have a lot more control. It's a combination of federal and state. So when there's something like this, it's going to, in fact, affect the entire citizenry.
Now, I'm normally against taxes, most taxes, but I am a Georgist, or geolibertarian would be the modern Georgist. And so fuel taxes, gasoline taxes is actually one of the taxes I approve of, because when you are burning, fossil fuels to fuel your vehicle, you are creating an externality that is impacting the climate. And if there is no tax to internalize that externality you're putting into the market, then you're basically going around messing up everybody's air, and they're basically subsidizing you. So gasoline taxes are one way to actually make the market operate fairly, instead of overproducing pollution and underproducing competing forms of transportation, because basically everyone else is subsidizing your ability to drive.
And I know that there are some people that like to claim that a fuel tax is a user fee. And if all things were equal, meaning that everybody's automobiles got the same fuel mileage, then maybe it could be a user fee. But when you look at, let's say some poorer areas where people aren't able to afford Priuses or some other form of a hybrid or some really nice fancy car that gets 30, 40, 50 miles to the gallon, then it becomes a regressive tax to where the poorer people are paying a much higher percentage of that tax because they're only getting 15 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, and that's true. And it depends on what behavior you are trying to internalize the externality. If you're trying to use a gas tax to fund roads, then yes, the amount of gas used is not necessarily...
That's the claim, is that fuel taxes pay for roads.
And I'm saying in this case where he said he was doing it because of climate change, then the actual appropriate thing to tie the cost to would be the gallons of gasoline burned, because that's what's actually affecting the climate. If you're trying to charge a gas tax to pay for roads, then people with electric cars who buy no gas use those roads. It's not actually tied to the usage of the roads. But if you're trying to tie it to things like climate change, air pollution, etc., then the amount of gallons of gas you burn is pretty close. Like, there's going to be some variance in how much your car filters out. But that actually, from a cost accounting perspective, you've actually found the driver of the cost there.
I think there's an issue with, even if you say, okay, so some tax is going to be okay, the question becomes, well, how much?
Right.
When does it become out of control? Right now in France, they are paying $5.50 a gallon for gas, which is a lot more than we do.
Is that the tax that's $5.50
That's
gallon?
the total price. I believe that's the price of the gas plus the tax.
Because it wouldn't surprise me if that was the tax, because I know in states like New York, the tax on a pack of cigarettes is the same as what a pack of cigarettes cost in a bunch of other states.
Well, if we presume that their usual costs would be comparable to ours or close to ours, then it is still going to be like
right. And they also
$2.
sell it by the liter instead of by the gallon,
this was by
because
the gallon.
like they're
metric
French and they use the metric system, which in their defense, basically everybody but the Americans use the metric system. And I think there's one other country like Sri Lanka, maybe. There's only like one or two other countries other than the U.S. that don't use the metric system.
I hate the metric system. I hate it because the paper doesn't fit right in all of my stuff. Because sometimes I get papers from other countries because I do immigration law.
Oh, you get like A4.
And then nothing, it doesn't fit right. So I hate the metric system. I just had to throw that in there.
Well, I think, so back to the tax, amount, I think, it totally depends on what you're trying to achieve from an economic standpoint. So if you're trying to achieve air pollution, the most libertarian way to go about that and the most economically efficient way to go about that would be a cap and trade scheme where you have actual...
Where Al Gore controls...
No. Where you have actual ecologists, scientists who know what they're doing, figure out this is the carrying capacity of pollution for this particular area. And we go, okay, that's the cap. That's as much as the environment can process. And now we're going to auction off the right to pollute that much. And so in this case, the fuel companies selling to that area would be the ones paying for that and then passing that on to consumers. And it wouldn't be a tax that you're paying at the pump. It would be something that the pollution company, the fuel companies paid for in advance. Then there would be a second tax you might consider if you are a Georgist like me and you consider the earth and all its resources rightfully belong to all of us in common. Then natural resource extraction would be something that by itself, pollution aside, would be something reasonable to charge an additional tax on, because that is people compensating the rest of society for privately using something that belongs to everybody.
Well, I have two issues with this. One of them is even when what the government wants to do starts off as a good idea, sometimes they sort of run away with it. And what began as a good idea turns into something else. So there's always the danger of that occurring. And then the other issue is with a lot of the pollution, et cetera, especially when you're looking at climate change and total carbon output into the environment, if only some countries are doing it and then other countries are not, and they're just pumping out and pumping out and pumping out carbon, then it doesn't solve the problem. And the people who are trying to do something about it suffer from trying to fix it when it's not going to get fixed because not everybody's on board.
Right. And this is one of the, I guess, biggest concerns that I hear raised about some sort of cap and trade is China and a couple of other Asian countries that have these growing economies. They're doing a lot of pollution, but we need Al Gore running something in the U.S. to prevent everybody except for General Motors and the EPA from polluting stuff. And somehow that will wind up offsetting what China and I think India.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is with pollution in general, there's what economists call a J curve if you look at the status of the environment. So basically, as an economy starts to develop, it will become more polluted. So the environmental quality goes down. But as the economy develops more, people actually voluntarily or through regulation, both, choose to live in a cleaner environment, and they can now afford to do it because they're no longer meeting just basic survival needs. And you see that environmental quality actually goes up. And this has happened around the world over and over and over again as economies have developed.
It's happened over and over again in democracies, but it's a different type of government in China. Are we sure the same thing is going to happen over there?
China technically is a democracy, and we can get into technicalities on what is and what isn't a democracy. If you want to say they're a free country, they're definitely not, but they do get to vote, which by definition makes them a democracy. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live.
What is it costing stuffing you in vet bills for that convenience of just pulling open a bag of
formulated, extruded, processed cereal bits that cost a ton of money anyways.
How do you feed your dog to derive not only energy, but a good coat, bright eyes, and a great attitude?
Come to Dynovite for help.
DINOVITE.com.
I found his raw meat diet on Dynovite.com.
With just the raw meat and the eggs and the Dynovite and the Super Omega on top of it.
Try Super Omega Fish Oil.
Buy 2, get 1 free.
Ground beef, white rice, eggs, including the shells, and the Dynovite supplement, and then the Lico Chops.
Try Lico Chops. Buy 2, get 1 free.
It just balances out his body and his mind and his spirit.
Adding Dynovite to their diet has every single dog in my kennel looking better than they have ever looked.
Their skin is so much better now that they're on the raw diet. I don't even give them the kibble anymore.
DINOVITE.com.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Help get LRN.FM into more ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live, 855 450 free. That's 855 450-3733. That's the toll-free call-in line for how you can call in and join us and bring up whatever is on your mind. There's also the Discord call-in lines available over at discord.lrn.fm, and there's a lot more to Discord other than just the call-in lines. All kinds of chat rooms, both audio and just typing words. Several of the hosts are in there, some during the breaks, some maybe that aren't on the air being in there during the show, and a lot of other interesting characters. We'll get back into the discussion about sort of the environment and what are some libertarian solutions, and is a tax the best way to wind up handling that? But first, I want to tell you about a way that you can actually protect your home and your property, and that would be with the Blink security camera system. The Blink cameras are motion-activated HD cameras that are wire-free. They set up fast, and the batteries last up to 2 years. And Blink's live feed option lets you monitor what's happening at your home anytime, anywhere from your smartphone. No contracts, no subscriptions, and Blink works with Alexa. Alexa, check my security cameras. Get your Blink cameras starting at, or rather your camera system starting at less than $100. Visit blinkprotect.com/FTL. That's blinkprotect, all one word, blinkprotect.com/FTL. So we got into a discussion about the purpose of fuel taxes because there's a riot of some sort in Paris.
Yeah, and in some European countries, the taxes on the fuel represent 75% of the price of the gasoline. So you have to start to wonder, this has been going on for a while.
Right.
Has it had an effect? Have we stopped climate change? If it's not doing any good, isn't it just making life difficult for the common people?
Right. And one thing that is also sort of interesting. So in addition to the tax, at least here in the United States, and I'm guessing several other countries as well, there's the subsidized corn ethanol that is being added to the fuel. Mm-hmm. So you're subsidizing something for people to use, and then you're taxing it after they use the thing that you're encouraging them to use. It's really, really strange.
Mm-hmm. But what were you thinking, Jackie, in terms of some libertarian solutions to climate change?
Oh, well, I just wanted to make one note that climate change and the amount of carbon dioxide put into the environment is not the only issue with burning gasoline. There's actually quite a bit of particulate matter, PM10 and PM2.5, and numerous carcinogens that are put out when you burn gasoline that are adverse to human health. So there's other reasons to want to discourage the burning of gasoline. Even if climate change was not an issue, there's significant externalities to human health, and unfortunately, I don't have it at the tips of my fingertips because this is something that I worked on many years ago. But I used to work for the air quality science department at a research institute, and it was something like living within 50 or 100 feet of a major road, like an arterial, was the health equivalent of smoking a couple packs of cigarettes a day in terms of the impact on your lung health and the impact on children with asthma. So I know that people argue a lot about the science of climate change, but I don't think anybody argues whether or not asthma is real or whether or not lung cancer is real. And so just climate change aside, there's still tremendous, tremendous externalities from burning gasoline to human health of the people in the immediate vicinity. And most in the amount that, at least in the United States, I think that people pay for gasoline does not reflect those externalities that they're basically poisoning the air of the people around them, and they're not compensating these victims.
Would there not be a better way, though, to deal with this that would encourage the market to be more creative instead of simply taxing the people? For example, having cars maybe compete and have a prize if they have lower emission standards. When I used to work in the European Parliament, and I was living in Brussels at the time, which is where it is, and the air quality there at the time, this is 20 years ago, was just awful. All the sides of the buildings were all black, and that's because of the emissions from their cars, even though they had really high taxes on their gasoline. And one of the differences was in the United States, we had emission standards, and they had taken a different approach and simply taxed the gasoline, and they weren't looking at emission standards.
Yeah, that's why I actually prefer cap and trade as a means to controlling air pollution than just a straight up tax. Because a straight up tax, you could put out an infinite amount of air pollution as long as people are willing to pay the tax. Cap and trade, you have hopefully scientists, although we do know that there's possible regulatory capture by industry and lobbyists, but hopefully you have scientists putting together the standard of how much of this pollutant we can have in the air. That's the cap. And then you're auctioning it off. And so that way, the price can just keep going up. You create a market for the right to pollute up to this amount. And that's where you give people incentives to clean up. And places where they've done limited cap and trade on air pollution, power companies have come in and we're already at cap. They'll buy up a bunch of old cars off the road and junk them so they can put in a power plant.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't you also, and just answer briefly if you can, then we'll go to the phones, but wouldn't that also sort of encourage in some kind of way certain companies to just move overseas to a country that isn't using a cap and trade?
Yeah, I mean, but we have that right now where companies are encouraged to move overseas to any country that has lower environmental and, labor protection standards as we are in the U.S.
I think it's hard for a power company to move to another country, except maybe Mexico, but they're not going to have better luck in Canada.
I know that there are, some power companies that are importing electricity from Canada. I don't know how it happens. Let's go to the phones. We've got Tom calling in from New Hampshire. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, you got to remember that the government is the major cause of carbon monoxide emissions and car usage. When you take a look at the war on walkers, how, they tax everybody and spend the money plowing snow onto the sidewalks to make way for persons who matter. They plow snow onto the sidewalks, and they repave streets that don't have sidewalks. They put up traffic lights without crosswalk lights, and then they impose outrageous zoning restrictions to prevent people from living closer to where they can work and shop and gather to drink together. And then they go out and require parking lots. If you want to build an apartment house, 10 units, okay, then you have to put in a parking lot with 17 spaces. That way people don't have an incentive to take the bus because they still have to pay for that parking lot anyway. And you take a look at how the intense hostilities, you finally manage to find a job where you can get a paycheck, and your paycheck is drawn on a bank that's closed. Oh, but the drive-up window is open for persons who matter. You're walking home, you're lucky to find white paint marking a crosswalk. But when the freight train is crossing the street, now the people who could get killed are persons who matter, persons who are in cars. So lights flash, bells clang, and gates drop to protect the persons who are in cars, persons who matter.
Tom, thank you for the call. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Your thoughts on pollution?
The United States of Empire is a book that claims the United States is the empire of the world. George Washington had warned us against foreign wars. The United States of Empire shows that World Wars I and II left England broken. Its former colony, the U.S., had to save the empire. Was there ever a vote? Who do we fight for? The deep state began with World War I. The United States of Empire by James Dunn. Available at Amazon Books.
Hear that? That's the sound of a house being trashed while a gang of thieves ransack the place. And what they don't steal will be destroyed.
This year, resolve not to be the next victim of a break-in. Go to faketv.com and discover a device that creates the illusion someone inside is watching TV, even when you're miles away. Security is a mindset, and Fake TV should be part of your security solution. Be vigilant, but not fearful. faketv.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
I love My Magic Mud. I drink a lot of coffee. I had stains on my teeth. Then I found My Magic Mud, and I was told it would remove stains. So I paid attention when I brushed the first time. My Magic Mud is black tooth powder, and the difference it made in my teeth in one application was noticeable. With 4, my teeth were as white as you normal folks out there. Please go to mymagicmud.com and buy a jar. There's 150 applications for $25. You can use Bitcoin, mymagicmud.com.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free at apps.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Some of our live shows are streamed in HD on Twitch. Please follow and share at twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. That is the toll-free call-in line. It's how you can call in and join us and bring up whatever is on your mind. In studio tonight, it's Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And don't forget, you can also, if you don't want to just hear our voices, you want to see our faces. And also our Christmas tree that Jackie put up a couple nights ago that currently has one ornament hanging on it. You can do that over at Twitch, twitch.lrn.fm. And then there's also other things that go up there. So whenever there's another show being produced live out of the studios here, that's on the Twitch. Occasionally there's the Jazzy Cam.
That's
Jazzy
the most
is
important
the
part.
studio beast, and sometimes that is turned on. Other times it is not. Depends on whether Jazzy is laying in her comfy bed or whether it's nighttime and nobody's up, and so all the lights are off. But lots of stuff, and sometimes people play video games. Twitch.lrn.fm. Jackie, there was something that you wanted to respond to Tom, who had called in.
Yeah, so he was talking about government being the biggest polluter. That's definitely true in the U.S. The U.S. federal government is probably the biggest polluter in the world. But
Yes.
Then he went on to talk about the war on walkers and zoning issues. And the great news is to Tom or anyone else.
When you say walkers, you're not talking about the zombies from
pedestrians.
Night of the Living Dead, or what's the one with the guy Norman Reedus?
Well,
what's that one? The Walking Dead. You're not
yes.
talking about that.
And we're not talking about the White Walkers.
We're not
from Game of
talking
Thrones,
about
no.
White Walkers from... Yes.
Living, alive human pedestrians, the war on them. That varies tremendously from place to place because that is almost entirely a local government issue, which means the good news is that individuals actually have an opportunity to impact that. Right where we live here, Keene, New Hampshire, they're in the middle of doing a comprehensive rewrite of their land use regulations for the first time in 50 years. And some of us in the local libertarian community have been going to the downtown zoning meetings to express concerns. And one of the ones that I brought up was a lot of times the type of zoning regulations they want to have downtown, and they talked about preserving the character of downtown. They want to have all these like cute little boutique, locally owned retail shops and all these expensive frou-frou restaurants. And
sounds good.
Yeah, well, the thing is they basically want downtown to be a playground for the upper class, but the people who actually work at these jobs are making minimum wage. They can't afford to live downtown. And ironically, I had to leave the meeting early to go pick up a friend from a couple miles away and drive her to work downtown because she can't afford to live near her job. And so a lot of times people come in and they say, oh, we want to have these zoning regulations and these architectural standards and whatnot to make our downtowns look pretty. And they don't think about the fact that this really hurts the working poor who need to work down there and can't afford to drive cars all over the place and would like to walk to work. So
and
get involved in your local zoning committees and zoning commissions and go to those meetings. Like find out where they are and go and speak up.
According to Walk Score, Keene is the third most walkable city in New Hampshire and one of the top 5 in New England. And we still have problems with people that don't live near one of the bike paths, or they live on a road where there's not a sidewalk, and runs into that situation that you're talking about where somebody just a mile outside of the city, which normally should be, or a mile from where they work, should be walkable, but they're on a major road. Yeah. It's, like a state road that has no sidewalk.
Yeah, and a big part of the reason that people have to be pushed out there is there's height restrictions. Now sometimes height restrictions make sense if, that's as high as the local fire equipment can put out a fire, or that's the maximum capacity of the sewer system under that block. Like, height restrictions aren't completely arbitrary, but a lot of them are just like, I like my view the way it is. Mm-hmm. And, and then the thing he mentioned about the minimum number of parking spaces, my whole family's back in the Seattle area, and that's a big part of what's driving the housing crisis in Seattle is they have so many requirements for building apartment buildings, and one of them is a minimum number of parking spaces per unit when these are going in downtown where most people take transit.
Right, and we were talking about this a couple of months ago when the Seattle City Council was voting on, and luckily they wound up ultimately rejecting the so-called Amazon tax.
Well, actually, they voted it in, and then my brother and several other people started a city initiative to put on the ballot to repeal it, and then they voted it out.
Right. I remembered that, they voted it out, but it looked like it was going to go through.
It got passed, and then it got repealed, within a month.
Yeah, I thought it was within, 1 or 2 weeks of when they had the original meeting, but it's something that they ultimately wound up rejecting, and was going to basically wind up taxing Amazon and a couple other companies that have headquarters in Seattle. And somehow the city council was blaming Amazon for the homeless problem when, no, Amazon is hiring people and paying them good money. It's your regulations that are causing people to not be able to live in Seattle.
I mean, Amazon is indirectly contributing in that as they bring more people in with their jobs, they are, if you think of supply and demand curves in your head, they are shifting the demand curve up.
Houses available.
Yeah.
But that's not Amazon's fault.
No, well, Amazon was contributing to the supply curve shifting up. The city council is what was contributing to the, Amazon was contributing to the demand curve.
Right.
But the city council's restrictions on housing is what was contributing to the supply curve not being able to shift as fast as the demand curve. If you want to visualize supply and demand, I wish this was a TV show and not a radio show, and I'd be up on a whiteboard, drawing pictures now.
So basically what Amazon was doing would have been fine had the government not basically interfered and made it so it wasn't fine.
Yeah, it's
with
as
these
the price,
local zoning
yes,
things.
Exactly. As the demand for housing went up, which if supply stays the same is going to push the price up, suppliers, developers, and landlords, and even homeowners renting out extra rooms in their house, the market would respond to that by going, oh, hey, I'm getting a premium now to provide housing, so I'm going to go and put more housing out on the market. But between regulating like whether, and it's not even just big apartment developments, it's really hard to get approval to remodel your house to create like a basement apartment or a garage apartment or some other sort of mother-in-law apartment in Seattle. A lot of people in the area just do it illegally. Like I lived in an illegal basement apartment once, and yeah, okay, all the power to our apartment would go out if we ran the vacuum cleaner and anything else at the same time. So like we totally knew this thing wasn't up to code. But they just make it so difficult for people to get the necessary permits, inspections, etc., to take single-family homes and turn them into multifamily homes. Or they say, oh, you're not zoned for that. You can't do that here. So it's not even needing to have developers with a ton of capital and financing put up a new, 300-unit apartment building, just making it easier for single-family homeowners to, turn a garage or an attic or a basement or cut off part of their house.
So this is
help.
what I meant about sometimes the government does things with the best of intentions. That all the rules that they were creating that you're describing in terms of the zoning and making sure things are up to code and all of those codes, each rule by itself makes sense. But all of them all together are too overwhelming, and it has a negative impact, an unintended negative impact that they didn't think about, that is causing more problems than the problems all those rules were meant to avoid.
Or maybe they did think about it and they just decided, we really don't want apartment buildings in this area, so we're going to make all of these rules that effectively prohibit. It doesn't, specify apartment buildings are not allowed, but it just effectively does not allow them to be built.
The point that I was making is that even if a rule looks good on the surface, and even if the law by itself makes sense, seems to be with the best of intentions, it may still not be worth the negative consequences.
Yes. And Jackie, I think you've got something that you want to say about that we'll get into here in just a moment, plus your calls and thoughts. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. Your calls and thoughts welcome about whatever is on your mind.
Does your dog itch, scratch, stink, or shed like crazy? Come to Dynavite for help. Order a 90-day supply of Dynavite. Pick up 2 bottles of Lico Chops, get the 3rd bottle free. New improved Lico Chops with omega-6, omega-3, vitamin E, and now 6 extra direct-fed microbials. Even better for the digestive tract and immune system. And dogs love it. Try Lico Chops. Buy 2, get 1 free. This is Henry Lukasevic for Dynavite.
DINOVITE.com.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Attention parents and grandparents, have you ever wanted to give a gift that would have lasting value and provide spiritual benefits long after Christmas is over? A gift you could even call an investment in the next generation? If so, this is going to be the single most important message you'll hear this holiday season. Hi, I'm Bill Hyde, and I want to tell you about an exciting gift, one you can give your kids or grandkids that's going to teach Christian history, build up their faith, provide extraordinary role models, and it's all done with a distinctive Christian worldview. I'm talking about the award-winning Movies for the Mind CD sets, based on the extraordinary adventures of G.A. Henty audio series. The best part? You can finally give a Christian gift to the kids that's not boring, dull, or cheesy. The audio adventures also build vocabulary, focus, and attention span, but they're not sold in stores, and you can't get the adventures at any big internet retailers either. So to learn more, even get below wholesale pricing, and a whole bunch of Christmas bonuses, go to GiveTheAdventure.com. That's GiveTheAdventure.com. The perfect gift for kids of all ages, from 6 to 100. Go to GiveTheAdventure.com.
Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and one with just the Edgington Post. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Love what we do? Please help support our international satellite channels at patreon.lrn.fm. That's patreon.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. You can call in and bring up whatever is on your mind. We're talking about zoning and regulations, specifically regulations at sort of a local level, and how they wind up mostly having a negative impact, even though when there's good intentions. It's Darryl, Jackie, and Laurel in studio tonight. And Laurel, in the last segment, you mentioned something about the sort of the accumulation of regulations, to where a regulation that you have, say, fire alarms in every room kind of makes sense. But when you add on 10 other regulations, it becomes cost prohibitive. And this is something that, Jackie, you wanted to touch on about this sort of rezoning plan that they're working on here in our town, or technically it's a city, but it's basically a town.
It's a town. And
you know, it's something that's probably happening in other state or other places as well, because I think the consultant said it's been 50 years since they've looked at the zoning here.
Yeah, so I guess the last time there was comprehensive zoning and land use regulation reform in Keene was about 50 years ago. It's now split up over 10 sections, and they're doing a complete like delete and replace, where they're just throwing out those 10 sections and putting in a whole new document. But I mean, that's for Keene specific. Just in general, we're talking about when they bring in zoning regulations or design standards, things like that. One thing that I find particularly concerning, and I brought it up at the meeting, and then again, we dropped in the next day for the open house, they want to put these out for the city council to vote on, but they're not doing anything to calculate what the potential costs to developers and building owners who are remodeling. And this is something we see with a lot of government regulations. At best, when they come out with a regulation, they may be required to do like a fiscal impact statement for the federal budget or the state budget, whatever level for the government's budget. Right. But they almost never are required to do a impact statement on what it's going to cost business.
Right.
What it's
Here's
cost
what
the
this
market.
new regulation is going to cost the average person that lives in this jurisdiction.
Or what it's going to cost developers in this industry. And, I know the federal government and some states have laws that whenever they pass a new law, it has to go through, an office and come out with a fiscal impact statement for the government budget. And I would like to see a movement to push for a similar thing to be required on what this is going to cost the private sector.
Right.
Because a lot of times you have people like on city councils who are doing this part-time from average backgrounds. And I've said many times the traits that make somebody a winning candidate are not necessarily the same traits that make someone a good legislator or a good governor in terms of, overlapping on the Venn diagram. There's not a lot of overlap there. They're like, oh yeah, that'll make downtown be pretty, and they'll vote for it, and they'll not realize that they just stifle development because whatever they voted for has a tremendous cost. And if they knew, oh, this is going to add like 10% of the cost to building a building downtown, maybe they would have thought twice.
Or one of the new things that is in vogue in a lot of places is calling something a historical district, and then requiring that the street-facing facade not change from how it's been for the last 100 years.
Oh yeah,
my
mom is all about the historical districts. She's in Bellingham, Washington. She's a huge NIMBYist, not in my backyard, huge historical preservationist, and she's been at it for 20, 30 years, and now, surprise, Bellingham has a housing crisis. And it's like, it's because of people like you, Mom, not letting them tear down these turn-of-the-century Victorian houses and replace them with apartment complexes.
Right. So let's explain what this, historical site designation or historical district designation actually does. And you touched on it, and I kind of touched on it, but it requires this building has been here. It must stay in perpetuity because we have decreed that it is a vital part of this town or city or whatever. It cannot be torn down. It cannot be completely remodeled. The interior can be changed a little bit, but as we see it from the street, it must be exactly as it was.
And if you're
which winds up increasing, cost of renovations greatly, especially if it's using something that hasn't been, commonly available in 75 years.
To the point where nobody's going to renovate it because it's too expensive to renovate, so then it just deteriorates.
Now, one point that they did make at the zoning meeting is the least expensive, greenest building is the one that's already there. So they do want to discourage people just tearing things down and rebuilding. Like if you think about it, you're usually going to end up spending more building a new building than renovating an old one, unless you make it ridiculously prohibitively expensive. But one of the problems when you're looking at downtowns or central areas around downtown is if you consider just the building capabilities of the time 100, 200 years ago, it's not a very efficient use of that land. It's a few stories high. It probably doesn't cover the whole lot. Like, there's a lot of problems there. My whole neighborhood that I grew up in Bellingham, it's right near downtown. It's not too far from the college. It would be a great one to just bulldoze all the houses there and build apartment complexes, but they're not allowed to do it because the whole neighborhood now is got some sort of historical, preservation on it. And yeah, it's a bunch of really pretty, 1900-ish era Victorian houses, but like sitting right next to downtown, that's not a good use of that land.
A lot of these regulations, not only can they make things very expensive to do anything, whether you're doing a renovation or even if you're running a business, you run into the same thing. It makes it more expensive, but also makes it more complicated. And some people become overwhelmed with how complicated it is. And I think sometimes regulations, well-meaning regulations, chase out small businesses where they look at what it would entail to start a small business and they say, forget it, I'll just go be an employee for somebody else because it's really complicated. As a small business owner, it was very hard for me to figure out what all the requirements were that I needed to comply with. Because
there's not a central agency that you can go to that tells you, here are all of the forms you need to fill out.
Exactly. There's no list for me to get because it's a bunch of agencies involved and you have to make everybody happy and it's not always obvious what you need to do. So there's this level of complexity that chases people out of small businesses. And I think a lot of lawmakers say, well, we're going to make corporations do X, Y, and Z, and they make it sound like they're coming down on the large corporations when the effect is
they forget that mom and pop businesses incorporate for tax liability reasons.
They chase out small businesses, which advantages the large corporations by making all of these rules and regulations.
Yeah, the large corporations have entire legal compliance departments.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phones. We've got Robert calling in from Grand Rapids. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I got a little bit of a situation going on with business I'm trying to sell.
Okay.
In the city of Wyoming, Michigan. It is a small ice cream shop that I've had for about 15 years.
Okay.
I've closed the business down. It's been about 4 years, so the place has not operated for 4 years. I'm trying to sell it. Got a real estate agent, and he's a very good one, and he found a potential client to purchase the building and the property. I own the property and the building.
Okay.
And the people that wanted to buy the property wanted to turn it into a locksmith company or a locksmith place.
Okay.
They submitted a business plan. They told him very upfront what they wanted to do with the property. They wanted to put another building, an additional building on the property, convert the ice cream shop into a locksmith shop, and do everything by the book. Whatever they submitted to the city, they submitted and did everything by the book, according to Wyoming's own regulations and standards. Wyoming, not to try to necessarily push the liability issue, but they're not a very business-friendly city. They flat out refused to allow them to purchase that property and use it for locksmithing. Their argument was, or their basic response was, it needs to be used as a like business, even though their own regulations state that they can do this, that, and the other thing, which this potential buyer wanted to do and did, and they were refused. So I'm stuck with this property.
Yeah, this is just
until or
government
unless
getting
someone
out of control.
And I'm confused as far as why anybody needs to submit a business plan to the city before they're allowed to purchase a building. Robert, I'm not sure if you've got more. If you do, hold the line. Otherwise, thank you for the call. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Yeah, that just sounds like local bureaucrats run amok. This is Free Talk Live.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine. Great for heart palpitations. By Ann. Before I started using this product, every afternoon, my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc. I love this product. It really works. By Brad. Works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. LRN.FM now has a Discord. Discord is a free text and voice chat platform, and we now have our own server with a bunch of channels at discord.lrn.fm. You can join other listeners as they chat about various things during our live shows, or anytime, day or night. Discord software is available cross-platform, so you can have it on whatever device you want and take your chats anywhere. Join our Discord at discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Sunday, November 25th, 2018. Silver is trading at $14.28 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,223 per ounce. Zen is trading at $6, and the average price of Bitcoin is $3,872. Antiwar.com reports after a few days in which weather problems limited U.S. airstrikes against eastern Syria, the Pentagon resumed its strikes against the town of al-Shufa on Friday, once again hitting civilian areas and killing non-combatants. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is reporting that 11 civilians were killed in U.S. strikes on Friday, including at least 5 children. This is a very preliminary toll, and it is expected to rise further, with many other civilians badly wounded in the attacks and not expected to survive. The U.S. strikes are centered on 3 towns near the Iraq border, which are under control of the Islamic State. The towns are being attacked by the Kurdish YPG, and the U.S. is trying to provide air support, though in recent weeks, the strikes have overwhelmingly killed civilians. The Pentagon has once again not commented on the matter of the Friday attacks. The only time they did was to issue a blanket denial, but even then confirmed bombing the towns in question at the time in question, insisting some unidentified other Air Force did a civilian killing. Zencash has changed their name to Horizon to better represent their transition from a cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They are working towards the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizon platform. The unique spelling of Horizon is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remain ZEN. Learn more at horizon.global and join the Horizon community. HORIZEN.global. UPI reports Sears, which filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy last month, has listed 505 stores it hopes to sell to a new owner in an effort to stop them from closing. The bankrupt retailer identified the stores that it plans to sell in a bankruptcy court filing on Wednesday, though it is searching for new owners to keep those stores open. Sears hasn't ruled out liquidation, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. The company received court approval a week ago to sell its best-performing stores after receiving previous approval to start closing sales at 142 unprofitable stores, according to the Chicago Tribune. December 15th is the deadline for Sears to receive an initial bid for the stores it identified this week. The deadline for other buyers to submit bids is December 28th. The auction is set for January 14th. The 132-year-old company, with 506 locations, including 482 full-line department stores as well as 360 Kmart stores, according to a public filing, announced its Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in mid-October. When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Reuters reports the Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday kickoff of the U.S. holiday shopping season showed the increasing preference for online purchases as more Americans opted to stay home and use their smartphones while sales and traffic at brick-and-mortar stores declined. The ongoing shift to online shopping has forced retailers across the country to invest heavily in boosting their e-commerce businesses and also highlights the impact of early holiday promotions and year-round deals on consumer spending. The weekend also redefined the importance of Black Friday. For the past few years, Black Friday was believed to be waning in importance, but it is now turning into a day when shoppers do not necessarily flock to stores but spend heavily online. Bill Park, a partner with Deloitte and Touche LP, said online sales are starting to complement in-store shopping over the weekend, and for shoppers and retailers, the two platforms are starting to converge. Online sales rose more than 23%, crossing $6 billion on Black Friday, according to data from Adobe Analytics, which tracks transactions at 80 of the top 100 U.S. retailers. On Thanksgiving, it estimated sales grew 28% to $3.7 billion. Preliminary data from analytics firm Retail Next showed net sales at brick-and-mortar stores fell 4 to 7% over the 2 days, while traffic fell 5 to 9%, continuing the trend of recent years. No data was yet available for actual spending in stores. Data from retail research firm ShopperTrack also showed that visits to stores fell a combined 1% during Thanksgiving and Black Friday compared to the same days in 2017. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Following earlier reports of 27-year-old Mark Felder's profound and startling level of pride in his alma mater, the University of Miami alumnus spoke to Onion reporters about his strong affection for the academic institution that left him totally unprepared for the job market and floundering in $50,000 of debt.
I would not trade my time at the University of Miami for anything. Miami has the best college experience in the country, hands down. I had an awesome time there, and it's an amazing place. We've got awesome bars, awesome sports, an awesome campus, and we're pretty much right next to the beach. I mean, what more could you want? You'd have to be crazy not to go there.
Felder, who paid over $140,000 in tuition, told reporters he takes an annual trip to see a Hurricanes football game and visit the university that failed to teach him any marketable job skills whatsoever, leaving him so financially helpless he was forced to move back in with his parents after graduating.
AMI, fight, fight, fight! Yeah, it's all about the U, baby, all about the U. That's what I'm talking about. Go Canes, baby!
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, kicking off hour number 2. You are still welcome to call in and join us. You can call in toll free, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. There's also the Discord on-air call-in lines available over at discord.lrn.fm. And in studio tonight, it's Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And we've been talking about, well, mostly zoning and local regulations, but also sort of, I guess, a broader philosophical discussion about the role of regulations. And this all sort of unrolled from discussing the riots in Paris over some kind of fuel tax. And Laurel, you had the average cost of fuel in Paris per gallon.
$5.50.
Compared to in the U.S. right now, I guess, what the average is, $2.50?
Something like that, $2.50 to $3. It depends on where you go.
I think, and it's dropping. I mean, I've seen people posting pictures lately of under $2.
Right.
To note how unusual that is, but it is going down.
You know, just like assuming that all things being equal and the only thing causing the difference is taxation on the fuel, you can see how high the taxation is in Paris, and I'm presuming all of France. I'm guessing not too many people drove cars from the far reaches of France to go riot over a fuel tax, but it would not surprise me because I've seen crazy types of protest in the U.S. where it's like, wait a second, that just doesn't make any sense at all. You're telling me you got a permit to have a protest to yell at how upset you are about an overreaching government. And speaking of overreaching governments, we've still got Robert on the line from Grand Rapids. Just to catch everybody back up to speed, Robert called in during the end of hour number 1. Says he's been trying to sell an ice cream shop in a town near Grand Rapids, and the potential buyer had to submit some kind of business plan to the town, and then the town said, you don't want to do an ice cream shop, so we're not letting you open because a locksmith and an ice cream shop are different types of businesses, and it has to be the same.
Correct. And the regulations, according to my real estate agent, he stated to me, and I have no reason to doubt him because he's a very good real estate agent, that everything that these potential buyers wanted to do was according to their own rules and regulations. And they just outright refused. They didn't give any other reason other than they want it to stay as an ice cream shop, or at the very least, if they wanted to do the locksmith business, they could not do anything to improve the property. They could not knock down a building that's over 50 years old and put a newer one up. They couldn't add an additional building to the property. even though everything they were planning on doing was supposedly by the book according to the city. So my real estate agent basically said, I'm kind of screwed in that regard, and I don't really have any recourse, because if I do try to fight it, that the city would pretty much make my life even more miserable by being even more nitpicky and more difficult to work with. So I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, and short of hiring an attorney and spending ridiculous amounts of money for something that I have no guarantee of, do I have any recourse, or am I basically stuck with that kind of attitude until or unless someone comes along and wants to buy it for what it was?
Well,
at an ice cream shop.
I mean, Robert, I'm not a lawyer, and well, Laurel is. She's not a local land use lawyer in Michigan.
I do immigration. Yeah.
But based on going to these zoning meetings and the reading I've been doing zoning based on the process here, it sounds like you've got two things going on. One, it sounds like your town is using use-based zoning, where they are determining what individual buildings or parts of town can be used for based on what type of business they are. And one thing that I do like about what the city of Keene's doing, and apparently this is considered the more modern approach, is they are moving to something called form-based zoning. So that's a phrase you might want to write down and use in any arguments you try to make. Form-based zoning is what sort of the modern urban planners are considering to be superior, and it's not so much what you want to use the building for. There are still some considerations on that, but it's does the building and does the business in the building fit into the neighborhood? So it's not, is this a locksmith or is this an ice cream shop? It's, if all the other buildings on the block are flush to the sidewalk, is this one flush to the sidewalk too? Are there windows on the first floor? Is there an entrance in, every X number of feet? That kind of thing. They don't care so much what type of business you're doing in there, as long as you're not significantly disrupting the character of the neighborhood. And apparently this is considered to be the modern approach to zoning that is superior to use-based zoning.
But as far as what you can do about it right now for your own situation, I think hire an attorney is really the only option, or find another buyer. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Because there are long-term things you can do in terms of protesting and trying to get some people to come in there and get the rules changed. But that's not very fast. So that might be something.
Right, but hiring a lawyer and trying to go through the court system and having the courts overturn some kind of ridiculously arbitrary zoning ordinance, also not going to be fast. Right. But, it would not hurt to wind up calling your local city councilors, or maybe the entire city council, maybe get some other business owners, small business owners, to get together, sign a petition, because if they know that there's like some organized group that isn't going to vote for them unless they overturn these things, people in public office, they get scared when they hear, we, a collective group of people, will not vote for you.
Yeah, and the good news is, and again, you look up online, use-based versus form-based zoning. The good news is the weight of what's considered modern best practices by urban planners is on your side. That as long as the building fits into the neighborhood, whether it's an ice cream shop or a locksmith, should be irrelevant. The second thing that you sounds like you have a problem with is that the local zoning board seems to have too much discretion. And so another thing that you may want to try to push for locally, and again, these are more long-term changes, but if you build a coalition of business owners or try to elect different city council people, you may be able to achieve these, is zoning. This should be just an administrative process where if you've done X, Y, and Z, they stamp it and you're good to go. It shouldn't have to go before the zoning board to be approved every time somebody wants to do something.
Incidentally, your whole story is, I think, an argument for people to become libertarian, because this is just the government gone awry.
Yeah, and I would even say, if you love personal liberty, come to New Hampshire, where we don't have home rule, yet there is, some level of zoning across the state.
It varies from city to city.
Varies from city to city. There are even some towns that have no zoning in this state, and even the places that do have zoning, they can only do things that the state has authorized them to do. So you're not going to have, as much bureaucratic overreach necessarily. And if you check out the Freedom in the 50 States rankings, you will see that New Hampshire ranks much, much higher than Michigan.
And this overall is a very good argument for why liberty-minded people need to get involved in their local government. Because a lot of times you go to libertarians and you're like, hey, there's openings on the zoning board. Let's apply for these local boards. And they're like, oh, but I don't want to tell people what to do with their property. So why would I want to be on the zoning board? And it's like, well, do you want somebody who does want to tell people what to do with their property be on the zoning board? Because that's who else applies. So if nothing else, libertarians should apply for these boards just to occupy the seat so that someone who does want to use the government power isn't in there occupying that seat. Just get your libertarian butt in that seat so that a big government butt isn't in that seat
Even
instead.
if you're one of many, at least you're a voice saying, giving the other people a hard time, don't make it easy for them.
Robert,
at least give them a hard time.
I know we didn't completely solve your problem, but hopefully we gave you something that you can work with, and thank you for the call. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
Your property and your family are precious. Protect them with Blink, like we have. Blink motion-activated HD cameras are wire-free, set up fast, and their batteries last up to 2 years. Blink's live feed option lets you monitor what's happening at home anytime, anywhere, from your smartphone. No contracts, no subscriptions, and Blink works with Alexa. Get your Blink camera system starting at less than $100 by visiting blinkprotect.com/FTL. blinkprotect.com/FTL.
It was on this day in 1982 that the first roller skating while carrying a boombox member of Congress was elected when James Sugar Boots Franklin narrowly won New York's 8th congressional seat. Franklin's victory was a watershed moment at the time, signaling that America's burgeoning population of boombox-carrying roller skaters had finally gained mainstream acceptance.
We proved Congress isn't just for suits and crew cuts. Say hello to the slickest legislator on 8 wheels, James Sugar Boots Franklin.
Franklin was an unlikely pioneer, a street-smart skater who admitted to being more concerned with impressing honeys with his silky smooth moves than with politics.
Franklin began organizing boombox-carrying roller skaters, advocating for basic rights like roller skate-accessible ramps in government buildings and protected street lanes where they could lay down cones for some sweet slaloming.
Just because we like to roll it out and have a smooth, fluid style that cannot be denied doesn't mean we aren't Americans. Yeah, that's right.
This is the Onion News Network.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
Now you can follow LRN.FM on the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. In studio tonight, it's Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And we'll get back to the phones in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. They're happy to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialist over at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it's now easier than ever to get gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash, BCH. To get started, just follow these steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com. Pick the gift card that you want, and because we are, broadcast in a lot of various ways, not all of our listeners are in the United States, so make sure that whatever gift card you choose is available where you live. Follow the instructions on screen and make your payment using Bitcoin Cash. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered very, very quickly. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com. And they have hundreds of gift cards to choose from. It would take way too long to tell you all of them, so I will just name a few. Applebee's, Domino's, Home Depot, Uber, Hotels.com, Nike, and many, many more. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com. Now, Jackie, I know that there was something you wanted to say about why libertarians should get on like local zoning boards or some other, local board, commission, etc.
Yeah, so Laurel, she had a really great phrase she used, a single voice of reason, even if you're the only person there. And I want people to understand just how much impact that single voice of reason can make. So I think it was maybe 15 years ago, because that's when I lived there, back in the Libertarian Party of Washington State, we elected one of our party members to the Kent City Council. And so he's just one guy. And Kent, I think, was the 8th largest city at the time.
All right.
And the impact this one guy made is there was something on the consent agenda for the city council. And that means the consent agenda is the part where everybody on the city council is presumed to just unanimously vote yes on it.
Yep. And most legislative bodies will have a consent calendar.
Yes.
And then everybody votes yes. And then whatever the recommendation, if a committee says things should pass, they pass. If the committee says things should die, they die. But as I understand it, anybody on the legislative body, whether it be the city council, the state house, county commission, whatever, they can remove something from the consent agenda.
Yeah, so during the approval of the agenda portion, he saw something on the consent agenda that he was concerned about, and he said, hey, what's this? And so they took it off the consent agenda to actually be discussed. Now, if I recall correctly, it was to continue to subsidize this indoor farmers market. My understanding, and this was a while ago and I wasn't there, but my understanding was Kent had a popular outdoor farmers market downtown. Somebody had the bright idea, wouldn't it be great if we had this year round? They built some building for it on the outskirts of town and moved it out there, and people stopped going, and it was losing a lot of money, and the city kept bailing it out year after year. And so they kind of were in this inertia where they sort of had this sunk cost fallacy where they're like, well, we threw all this money after it, so we'll just keep throwing money after it. And instead of thinking like, well, going forward, does this thing ever have a hope of turning a profit? They're like, no, we're just going to keep throwing money at it because we've been throwing money at it. So remember, this was something that presumably everybody was going to vote yes on. It was on the consent agenda. He got it taken off the consent agenda. As they were discussing it, and he pointed out, the fact that they were just using sunk cost reasoning to keep throwing, good money after bad here, he changed enough minds on the city council that when it came up for a vote, a majority of them voted no. So before he even asked anything, the assumption was going to be everybody on city council will just vote yes without even discussion. He got them to discuss it, changed their minds, got them to vote no. And I think when they did the math, he saved Kent City taxpayers over $1 million over the next few years by shutting this thing down that had just turned into this giant black hole for the city of Kent.
Kent, a city of 125,000 people roughly, so $1 million for a city that size, that's a pretty substantial amount of money.
Yeah, and this was a case of it was one libertarian, so you're more than just one vote. If you get on these things, you're one vote, but you're a voice coming in with a different perspective. And
right.
In his case, he had an inclination against government subsidizing private businesses, even if it's something that, people like farmers markets. Once they'd moved it indoors and tried to hold it year round, it stopped making money.
Sometimes when you say things that make sense, people listen.
Yeah.
So it's worth it to be on that board. So Darryl, if any of our listeners are thinking, you know what, I think I might want to be on one of those boards, do you have any advice for how they can find out what boards, what positions are available where they live?
So I know here in Keene, and not every municipality does a good job of posting things on the city or town website, but at least here they do post the stuff on the website. At most, it might be as difficult as going down to city or town hall and asking the city clerk. Mm-hmm. Now, they might try to railroad and say, oh, you've got to file a FOIA request, and then it's going to cost you X amount to wind up getting that information.
I doubt it,
but
though.
There are some places where they just don't want to give public data to the public.
I think
even though this is supposed to be information that everybody in the town is supposed to be able to easily find out, there are some people that they like feeling like, I'm the protector of knowledge.
A lot of people, though, because they put in some work into making these publications and brochures and stuff. My experience personally, and it's not necessarily representative, is when you go down and you ask city employees for a copy of this publication or that publication, they're excited to give it to you because you may be the first one who ever asked. Like, I asked for a copy of the Keene Comprehensive Master Plan, and they're like, we have a box of these in our closet. No one ever wants them. They were thrilled to give me one.
Yeah, because it's like 7 billion pages long and
368. I didn't want to print it out, so I asked them for a copy.
There's no plot. Yeah,
it's got more characters and it's more convoluted than Game of Thrones.
Like the 368 pages that you're talking about, we're not talking about some book size thing. This is 8.5 by 11.
Yes.
So regular full size paper, front and back.
I didn't want to print it out because it was
going to take you a long time to get through that.
And it would have just totally destroyed our color toner cartridges. So I just went down and asked for a copy, and they were like, oh, we have a box of these in our closet. Nobody ever asked for one, and they were so happy to give it to me.
Let's go to the phones. We've got Sarah calling in from New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yes, the city of London, they're going to ban all junk food commercials wrapped around the bus. And
hold on, who's wrapping junk food around a bus?
Well, the advertisers. That our buses are. They have advertisement, all sorts of advertisement. They wrap the bus and they do that in London, but they want to ban junk food. And I'm thinking of candies, soda pop, what other, like Cheetos, Doritos, what are considered junk food. And so they're going to do this. And I'm really all in support of it because
how about they just ban the buses in London? Because buses wind up polluting things. Sarah, thank you for the call. And Sarah, she's always worried about the environment. That's why she hates cars so much. This is Free Talk Live. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. 855-450-3733.
Want revenge on the common housefly? Well, after 10,000 years, someone has finally come up with a better way. The Bug Assault, a miniaturized shotgun, which utilizes ordinary table salt as ammunition. Non-toxic and no batteries required. So much fun, you'll forget you have a wife and kids. Makes the perfect stocking stuffer. Get your Bug Assault today and save $10 on the Bug Beam Laser Combo only at bugassault.com.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Slingbow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of slingbow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippies! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadati.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
We've all heard about blockchain assets like Dogecoin, Ether, and Ripple. Bitcoin isn't the only player in the blockchain game any longer. And for those of us wondering how to get our hands on these digital assets, finally, there's a solution. Shapeshift.io allows you to buy and sell between your digital assets and Bitcoin instantly between your own digital wallets. I've used it with ease. Shapeshift.io. There's no account or email address needed. You send them the crypto you want to sell. They send back the crypto you want to buy. It's that easy. Shapeshift.io.
Did you know we've taken our LRN.FM telephone listen line to a new level with the LRN.FM audio on demand line? Now you can call 712-770-8447 anytime and listen to LRN.FM's live feed. And you can listen to a bunch of our original shows on demand. Long distance fees may apply. Just dial 712-770-8447 and choose from the menu. 712-770-8447.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way,
love as your guide,
and liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. That's how you can call in and join us with whatever is on your mind. The us in studio tonight is Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And, you know, Sarah called in the last segment and talked about this thing where, like, the city of London is apparently banning junk food advertisements from the local transit. And Jackie, you very quickly were able to say, you know, like, the problem here is that, you know, these buses and whatnot are run and owned completely by the city.
That's it. Yeah, I said that during the break, but yes. So the idea here is that it's not they're banning junk food, is that they're banning junk food ads.
Right.
And I would say that the owner of any vehicle should be able to decide what they can do or do not want to advertise. In this case, though, the issue is that the owner is the government. And so now you're hitting, is this government censorship or not to ban a certain type of ads? If this were privately
it were in the
owned,
U.S., then there would be some kind of free speech issue.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of free speech laws they have in Britain, and I don't know why she's calling us about stuff that's happening in London.
She probably heard it on NPR because she always calls us about something that she either heard on NPR, some infomercial she heard at 2 o'clock in the morning, or something that she heard on Coast to Coast.
Yeah, so those of you at home, as far as we know, Sarah doesn't actually listen to the show. She just
has
calls
told
every
us
day.
that she doesn't listen to the show, even though we are on the radio in Albuquerque.
She just calls us every day, and I think half the time it's because she just wants us to Google things for her, because she's also told us that she doesn't have a computer or internet. And we take her calls because this is Free Talk Live and anyone can call. So Sarah calls us and asks us things, and then she has people, racing to Google it for her. And I guess it's a nice service that we offer to the shut-ins who only have a phone and no internet. So the issue here is sort of twofold. One, bus owners should be able to decide whether or not they want to run ads from a certain industry or company on their bus. This is complicated by the fact that in this case, the bus owner is the government. And so that makes it, is this, just the owners of the bus deciding we don't want to run these ads? Or is it a free speech issue because it's the government deciding not to allow ads on government property when they would allow ads from other companies on government property?
They don't have a First Amendment in the United Kingdom. They're free speech laws. I think they have some regulations, but they're not comparable to the United States. We have very, very good free speech.
Right.
In the
UK
States.
also doesn't actually have a written constitution. It's a series of, here's a compilation of documents plus all kinds of, common law, court ruling, et cetera, et cetera. So, to say they don't have a First Amendment is very obviously true because they don't have any document to amend.
Right.
But, this then, leads to a broader discussion, not only about, free speech and advertising on government-owned things, but just transit in general. And Sarah loves calling in about this thing in Albuquerque called the ART, the Albuquerque Rapid Transit, that taxpayers in New Hampshire are paying for. Because she mentioned, no. It didn't cost anybody any money because we got a federal grant for the thing. And it's, tens of millions of dollars. And this choo-choo train runs down the middle of the street, which then creates more pedestrians, and Sarah's always concerned about pedestrians getting run over by cars and whatnot. So, why is it that taxpayers in New Hampshire are paying for a choo-choo train in Albuquerque that Sarah wants when there's a bunch of people in Albuquerque that don't want this damn train?
Incidentally, it's not just taxpayers in New Hampshire. It's because New Hampshire is a tax donor state. We pay more in federal income taxes than we receive back.
This even ties back to what we were talking about earlier about gas taxes and the true cost of driving. So one reason that we have government subsidized mass transit is because we have even more government subsidized driving in the terms of not charging people the full cost for their fuel, the full cost for their roads, etc. And so we've created this whole situation in which first we had government functionally subsidized driving. And I would actually say a big part of U.S. military expenditures is the subsidies to the gasoline industry functionally. We're over there protecting our oil supplies so that, oil companies don't have to pay for that privately. And so we're subsidizing oil and gas to a huge amount. And so now we come around and go, now we need to subsidize mass transit because it can't compete with driving. Well, it can't compete with driving because the government's subsidizing the cost of driving. And so you end up having to subsidize one thing to try and even out, you've been pushing people into one form of transportation. Now you want to even it out. Oh, now you have to subsidize the other thing. And if you just got government out of the business of paying for other people's transit one way or the other, I think mass transit would end up being more competitive than the actual full cost of driving if we had privatized roads and people had to pay the full cost of burning gasoline.
And I'm glad you pointed out at least the subsidization of driving, which then ties in with the overall cost of owning a vehicle. And there are some people that they're saying, you know what, that just costs too much. If I need to go somewhere that I can't walk or take a bike, I'll just use Zipcar. And then they wind up, if you're not familiar with Zipcar, there's some kind of cell phone app, and you download and say, I need a car on this day from this place, and I will return it back, the next day. Or there's cars, there's even the ability to do just like one-way trips.
Yep.
And when, say, Laurel is done with the car, she drops it off at the designated drop-off spot, and then I go pick it up later, and then neither Laurel nor I own the car. There's some company that does, and then,
they've gone beyond that. You don't even need to do designated drop-off spots anymore. You just knows where the car is because they all have GPS in it. My brother uses these services on the regular, and he was telling me once about, or my mother was telling me once about how they went out to dinner and they took a zip car to the restaurant and parked it on the street. And he said he was done with it, and while they're in the restaurant, they watched somebody else go and get in the car and drive it off. Yeah. He wasn't taking it to a designated drop-off spot. And she's like, well, what now? And he's like, look, there's going to be another one within a block or two of here. Now, he lives in the Seattle area, right, where there's very high density of these services. And there's also many of these services, and they're in competition. And it is, completely, it's better than driving a car. You don't need a parking space. They're just on the street. You just look, and there's usually one within a few blocks, and you just sign in on your phone, go get it, drive it, drop it off wherever. Somebody else comes and picks it up.
And I'm guessing the rates are comparable to renting a car from like Avis or Enterprise, and
much
then you don't
expensive.
have to worry about, well, at Enterprise, you have to have a credit card. If you don't have a credit card and you only have a debit card, or you want to pay cash, that, well, we need documentation for this, that, the other thing.
Well, you do have to sign up for
some
this
kind of insurance that you're not going to wind up just stealing our car for $20.
Yeah, there is some sort of sign-up process in advance. I don't think it's as easy as just ordering an Uber, but I know it's significantly less expensive than renting a car, because one time I was going there, I missed the light rail stop. He had to come get me, and I think he ended up renting a car for the, 30 minutes it took him to come get me for like $10.
That's
not
bad.
Yeah, he just needed to come get me.
We are not sponsored by Zipcar.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that it is a thing that winds up making car ownership not really needed, because think of how much time your car just sort of sits there.
Yep.
Right. I like the whole entrepreneurship and trying new ideas. And this is really like government should encourage this sort of thing by not doing anything, by stepping back, not interfering with it, not making it more difficult. The government has a tendency to jump in to protect everybody, and they just end up stifling this sort of creativity that really moves us along.
Yeah. And we talked a couple of months ago about some sort of bicycle rental thing that, again, it's one of these, you have an app, something, the city of Dallas, I think it was Dallas, the mayor said, we can't have this. And so the company just wound up junking the bikes, and the mayor was upset that the bikes got junked instead of recycled or something, even though he didn't want the bikes there. But he got upset that the company didn't do what he wanted to with the bikes that he didn't even want in the city. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Do you operate a retail business and are looking for a solution for point-of-sale cryptocurrency acceptance? It's never been easier thanks to AnyPay.Global. There's no paperwork or approval process to open an account. If you already have a tablet, you're almost done. Just sign up at AnyPay.Global, drop your personal crypto wallet addresses on the setup page, and then load the app. That's it. You're accepting cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Dash at your store. Get started now at AnyPay.Global. AnyPay.Global.
Most of you know that heart disease is the #1 silent killer in the U.S. What if I told you for just $54.95 a month you could fight against heart disease naturally? At Heart and Body Extract, we've been helping thousands of people get back to a healthier heart. Don't just take my word for it. Check out all of the success stories at hbextract.com, or to order, call 866-295-5305. That's 866-295-5305. hbextract.com. Don't risk it when you can take charge of it.
What if there was a social media network only for the conservative?
What if there was a social media network not only for the conservative right general public, but also a platform for conservative politicians and advertisers?
And what if the social media network was the only free speech network in existence?
There is. It's rightsocial.net.
Rightsocial.net, a response to President Donald Trump's direct presidential order.
Rightsocial.net, where you have the right to freely speak your mind.
Rightsocial.net, the right place to be.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com. You can get emailed announcements and participate in contests via our email updates list. Plus, we have a Twitter account that you can follow and a Facebook page where you can become a fan. So visit news.freetalklive.com to get news about Free Talk Live as soon as it's announced and the way you want it delivered at news.freetalklive.com. That's news.freetalklive.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more.
You can sign up to receive the latest about the Liberty Radio Network via our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. That's updates.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Your calls and thoughts welcome about whatever is on your mind. And we'll get to the phones here in just a second. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about something that libertarians have wanted for a long time, at least a decade that I am aware of, and probably longer. And that would be a directory of liberty-minded businesses. Well, luckily, there is one. It's called Liberty.menu. It's a tool for our community. At its core is a directory for events, businesses, digital content, and more. Listings can be rated and reviewed, kind of like on Yelp, but there's also a bit of a social networking aspect where you can connect and share with other users. Use of Liberty.menu is exclusively for individuals who reject the initiation of force and those who agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle. Put your voluntarist ideas into action at Liberty.menu. And since the site is free to use, we can't offer you a discount because, like 10% off of zero is still zero, but we can give you a nice, neat little special badge. Yeah, that's right. You can get badges for your profile. And if you input code FTL, you get a special Free Talk Live listener badge. Liberty.menu. Use code FTL. Let's go to the phones where we've got Robert calling in from Vermont. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
All right, Darryl. Hey, I got a story. I think it's right up your alley. I'm a little hoarse, so bear with me. There's a story that's coming out of WCAX in Vermont. It says Vermont protesters want to use the necessity defense.
They want to use the what defense?
The necessity defense.
Okay. Well, what is that? Or maybe Laurel?
Necessity means you break a law basically because you had to, quite often, to save somebody's life. Like, let's say you're not supposed to trespass on somebody's property, but there's somebody on there dying, so you go on there. It's necessity. You had to save them.
Okay, so the story reads, are there times when it's okay to break the law in order to accomplish the greater good? That's the argument behind many acts of civil disobedience in the United States and the premises of what's called the necessity defense. Some protesters arrested for blocking traffic in Williston over the summer now want to use the necessity defense when their cases of disorderly conduct go to trial. The 9 defendants were part of a larger group protesting the Trump administration immigration policy.
So Robert, without reading the entire article, where was the protest? You said it was back over the summer, but where exactly was this? Was this in the middle of Interstate 91? Or was it on like some state road that only has like 3 cows that ever walk down it?
It was in Williston, Vermont.
I have no clue where that is. Where is that in relation to where people live in Vermont? Is it up near Burlington?
Well, I'm assuming so.
All right. Were they blocking the interstate? Does your article there say were they blocking an interstate or just like some regular road? And I'm curious how blocking a road is necessary for the type of protest that they were doing.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to their cause, but
the necessity defense is pretty particular. Really, it's a life and death situation usually, and the life and death has to be like immediate. Whatever you're doing that you're breaking the law has to be very immediate and directly related to saving somebody's life or something along that level. To say I'm protesting, I have to do this to save somebody's life in 3 years, 3,000 miles away. No, that's not going to be the necessity
I could
defense.
see, and Robert, thank you for the call. I could see if, let's say there was one of these internal border checkpoints on Interstate 93, and they're protesting immigration checkpoints, and they block the road just before the exit before this checkpoint, and they're directing everybody, get off of the interstate. There's a checkpoint up there. We're protesting these checkpoints.
That's not going to be the necessity defense.
It might not hold up in court, but I could see how they could make that argument. But just saying we had to block the road because, well, we felt that was the best way to do our protest, it doesn't even make sense. So I'm just saying, like, I could see a way. Not that I think it would hold up in court, but I could see a way to where they could say it was necessary, but without knowing the specifics of this case, I don't know whether it was.
And based on Laurel's explanation of the necessity defense, I don't understand how it would ever apply to civil disobedience for protesting. Because,
unlikely.
Yeah, you can always choose a different way to protest.
But like I said, if you're protesting these internal checkpoints and you're blocking the interstate right there at the last exit and you're directing every car to get off, then that would technically be civil disobedience as a form of protest, and it would make sense.
There, I think you're doing less. That's still civil disobedience, but there it's less of just you're protesting something that exists, and more like you're directly trying to interfere in what you see to be an immoral government action. So it's still a form of civil disobedience, but because you're in the process of directly stopping people from getting, arrested by the ICE thugs, I wouldn't say that's a protest. Like, a protest is usually something you hold in a different place and time than where the thing that you're protesting is actually happening, and you don't actually stop it. That's more like that's another form of direct action, but that's kind of like
So
you know,
now
chaining yourself to something so that it can't be removed, like where you're actually directly interfering and not just saying, hey, we're unhappy about this.
I would say that is also a type, and I guess now we're sort of getting into the minutia of what is a protest and what is not a protest.
Welcome to Pedantic Talk Live.
And something that happens quite frequently in New Hampshire is whenever there is a DUI checkpoint, there will be groups of activists standing on both sides of where this thing is with big giant signs directing everybody to turn. Here's how you get around this thing. That technically is, they're protesting the checkpoints while also helping people avoid the checkpoint.
And I guess you're also probably wanting to distinguish between, are you calling something a protest so that you can argue that it's covered by the First Amendment, or are you calling it a protest in terms of the actual logistics and strategy of organizing the thing? And so from a strictly just activism kind of logistics and strategy point, I would say that's a different kind of direct action than a protest. But if I were then trying to argue why I shouldn't have to go to jail for it later, I would say, oh, well, this is my First Amendment right to protest. Does that make sense? But I would define protest a lot more narrowly if we're just talking about different strategies and how effective they are. And I think a lot of just general, let's all show up somewhere with signs and yell about things form of protest is not super effective, whereas the type of direct action that you're talking about is more effective.
Well, I think protest is pretty broad. Direct action is a type of protest. It's more specific.
I guess rally, that's what I should be using.
Yeah.
A rally versus another type of direct action, and then put them both in the overall category of protest.
Yes.
So holding a rally on a freeway over a topic, I don't think really would meet it. I mean, it sounds like regardless, any kind of protest or direct action wouldn't meet it, but holding a rally on a freeway really doesn't seem related. Like, what does the freeway have to do with it?
Right, exactly.
You're just inconveniencing people because you think that that is going to get the attention that you want, and whether or not that's a good tactic is another conversation altogether.
Mm-hmm. I'm very much against the highway protests. I think it's very selfish. Because there's people trying to get places, and you're protesting and you have no idea what the people in the cars where they're going. Maybe they're trying to pick their kids up from school. Maybe they're taking a sick person to the hospital. And so to stop everybody and to say the thing that is important to me is more important than anything else that's going on in your life, that is really selfish.
And I mean, my parents, it became a thing, I think, during the Vietnam era, and my parents were part of the protest march that took over I-5 when the U.S. invaded Cambodia. And that was seen as a pretty big deal. But then that gave everybody the idea that, okay, well, we should do this for every little thing. And if we have time, I have a great story from when some people tried that in my hometown of Bellingham a few years ago. Word got out that, do we have time? Word got out that the Western students were going to have a protest march and that they wanted to take over I-5 because ever since the hippies did it in the 60s and 70s, people wanted to do it again. Police caught wind of this and they said, okay, to the protest organizers, we want to make sure everybody's safe. So let us go out first and stop traffic with flares. So the police are at the head of the protest march and they lead everybody onto the freeway. They stop traffic with flares. And if you've ever been in a protest march, you know everybody just keeps following the people in front. So the police marched them up the freeway, kept going, and marched them right off down the next exit, and everybody followed, and by the time they figured out what was going on, it was too late. They were off the freeway, and the protesters were like, we're not even mad. Good game, police.
Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. Your calls and thoughts welcome about whatever is on your mind.
Heart-related health problems affect millions of people each year. Maybe you're one of the many who suffer from issues related to angina pain, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, unbalanced cholesterol, irregular heartbeat, or clogged arteries. There is a solution that doesn't involve expensive prescription drugs that only mask the problem and leave you with horrible side effects. If you are ready to live your life free of sickness, pain, and fear, live your life with increased vitality, energy, and youthfulness, and experience your body healing itself, itself, then you're ready for Heart and Body Extract from Healthy Hearts Club. Here is what one satisfied customer had to say about Heart and Body Extract regarding his angina pain.
I haven't had an angina pain since I've been on it. The Heart Body Extract is just so great. I thank God that I was led to this product that's doing so much for me and that can do so much for other people.
Call to order your 2-month supply of Heart and Body Extract today. Call 1-866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Sunday, November 25th, 2018. Silver is trading at $14.28 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,223 per ounce. Zen is trading at $6, and the average price of Bitcoin is $3,872. Antiwar.com reports after a few days in which weather problems limited U.S. airstrikes against eastern Syria, the Pentagon resumed its strikes against the town of Al-Shufa on Friday, once again hitting civilian areas and killing non-combatants. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is reporting that 11 civilians were killed in U.S. strikes on Friday, including at least 5 children. This is a very preliminary toll, and it is expected to rise further, with many other civilians badly wounded in the attacks and not expected to survive. The U.S. strikes are centered on 3 towns near the Iraq border, which are under control of the Islamic State. The towns are being attacked by the Kurdish YPG, and the U.S. is trying to provide air support, though in recent weeks, the strikes have overwhelmingly killed civilians. The Pentagon has once again not commented on the matter of the Friday attacks. The only time they did was to issue a blanket denial, but even then confirmed bombing the towns in question at the time in question, insisting some unidentified other Air Force did a civilian killing. Zencash has changed their name to Horizon to better represent their transition from a cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They're working towards the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizon platform. The unique spelling of Horizon is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remain ZEN. Learn more at horizon.global and join the Horizon community. HORIZEN.global. UPI reports Sears, which filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy last month, has listed 505 stores it hopes to sell to a new owner in an effort to stop them from closing. The bankrupt retailer identified the stores that it plans to sell in a bankruptcy court filing on Wednesday, though it is searching for new owners to keep those stores open. Sears hasn't ruled out liquidation, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. The company received court approval a week ago to sell its best-performing stores after receiving previous approval to start closing sales at 142 unprofitable stores, according to the Chicago Tribune. December 15th is the deadline for Sears to receive an initial bid for the stores it identified this week. The deadline for other buyers to submit bids is December 28th. The auction is set for January 14th. The 132-year-old company, with 506 locations, including 482 full-line department stores as well as 360 Kmart stores, according to a public filing, announced its Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in mid-October. When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Reuters reports the Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday kickoff of the U.S. holiday shopping season showed the increasing preference for online purchases as more Americans opted to stay home and use their smartphones while sales and traffic at brick-and-mortar stores declined. The ongoing shift to online shopping has forced retailers across the country to invest heavily in boosting their e-commerce businesses and also highlights the impact of early holiday promotions and year-round deals on consumer spending. The weekend also redefined the importance of Black Friday. For the past few years, Black Friday was believed to be waning in importance, but it is now turning into a day when shoppers do not necessarily flock to stores but spend heavily online. Bill Park, a partner with Deloitte and Touche LP, said online sales are starting to complement in-store shopping over the weekend, and for shoppers and retailers, the two platforms are starting to converge. Online sales rose more than 23%, crossing $6 billion on Black Friday, according to data from Adobe Analytics, which tracks transactions at 80 of the top 100 U.S. retailers. On Thanksgiving, it estimated sales grew 28% to $3.7 billion. Preliminary data from analytics firm Retail Next showed net sales at brick-and-mortar stores fell 4 to 7% over the 2 days, while traffic fell 5 to 9%, continuing the trend of recent years. No data was yet available for actual spending in stores. Data from retail research firm ShopperTrack also showed that visits to stores fell a combined 1% during Thanksgiving and Black Friday compared to the same days in 2017. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Fans of the Tour de France will be disappointed to hear that the race has been put on hold for an indefinite amount of time, as many of the world's top cyclists are currently riding over to the creek to check out cool bugs. Our Chad Williams is live in Bergerac, France.
Thanks, Rachel. Roads that should be full of bikers are empty this afternoon. Right now, the riders were supposed to be here, making the climb up the legendary Mont Ventoux, but instead, they rode into the woods after German cyclist Andre Greipel heard that there were a bunch of stick bugs down at the creek, and then everybody wanted to go down there and throw rocks at them. That's when Dmitry Muravyev reportedly skinned his knee but didn't care, and Irish champion Nicholas Roach announced he saw this big weird frog with like an extra arm or something, but it was hard to tell because it hopped away too fast. Race officials have not put a time frame on when the event will pick up again.
People keep saying that this is going to delay the race, but if I know these boys like I think I do, they're going to find some awesome shortcut through someone's backyard.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Kicking off hour number 3. You are welcome to call in and join us and talk live with me, Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. That's the toll-free call-in line. Plus, we've got the Discord call-in lines available over at discord.lrn.fm. And, you know, we've sort of stayed, I'm not going to say on one specific topic because like there's been a lot of sort of tangents gone off, but it's basically been more at the local level, but in a general sense throughout the night. But let's talk about, and I know that this is one that generally winds up lighting up the phones, immigration. Story coming from the Financial Times about something that Trump said earlier in the week. Donald J. Trump's administration on Tuesday branded as absurd a ruling by a federal judge that blocked the president from stripping the right of asylum from Central American migrants who enter the country illegally. The DOJ and Department of Homeland Security said in a joint statement, quote, "It is absurd that a set of advocacy groups can be found to have standing to stop the entire federal government from acting so that illegal aliens can receive a government benefit to which they are not entitled." Now, Laurel,
Yes.
you happen to be an immigration attorney.
I do.
And you can sort of explain the differences between asylum and refugee, because I've heard people trying to use the two terms interchangeably. Right. About all sorts of groups.
Yes.
What is the difference between someone seeking asylum and someone who is a refugee?
Okay.
And part 2 of the question, what government benefit to which they are not entitled are the DOJ and the DHS speaking of in regards to these asylees or potential asylees?
Okay, well, let's start with part one because that one's already pretty big. What's the difference between a refugee and asylee? A refugee is anybody who's fleeing something from their home country, it's quite often war. And when people enter the United States as refugees, we have very particular laws about it. In order for somebody to enter as a refugee, the person has to be designated a refugee by the U.S. government before they approach the border. They have to be designated a refugee in either their home country or in a second country. It's usually a second country. They flee their home country, which is the first country. They go to a second one. They're designated a refugee there. And then they would be invited to the United States. And they would only be invited after a lengthy vetting process. And refugees, the numbers are very carefully controlled. There's a cap on it. And when people come as refugees, we're ready for them. We prepare for them. And there are a lot of social services available to them, which have been planned in advance.
And refugees are generally fleeing a war zone?
That would usually be the reason. It could theoretically be like a natural disaster, but it's usually civil unrest or fleeing a war zone.
So fleeing gang violence in Guatemala and Honduras, they could theoretically be refugees from that if it's pervasive. And
it doesn't have to be government action that they're fleeing.
And you did say usually we prepare for them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give some examples of major historical groups of refugees? I know like some of the people we had come over from Haiti after various disasters there. Would that be an example?
Well, every year the United States determines near the end of the fiscal year, the president in consultation with members of his cabinet says how many refugees we will be accepting for the following fiscal year. And it's also divided by region. So they'll say, we'll take this many from Africa, we'll take this many from the Far East, etc. So it's designated both by region and by the totality.
What are some examples of some major groups of refugees the U.S. has taken in the past, and what specifically they were fleeing? Like, would the Haitians be one example?
Well, the Haitians, there was a war in Sierra Leone, there was a war in Sudan, so we would take refugees from those regions specifically because there were wars going on.
Or during the breakup of Yugoslavia, that would be another place that we specifically accepted refugees from.
Yes, when there was the war in Albania and Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Because I had friends, multiple friends who came over from the former Yugoslavia, and they mentioned as part of their immigration process to the United States, they actually lived in refugee camps in Syria for a while, which was a lot more stable then. And so when we're accepting refugees from other countries, they usually have sort of a waiting period in some second country in a refugee
quite
camp.
often it can be 1 to 10 years. A lot of them will wait 2 years or 3 years before they are processed, they are properly vetted, and then they are invited over. So I have talked to refugees who have waited as long as 10 years. It is a very lengthy process for them to come over, although I have talked to some who've waited a year or less.
So like a typical refugee process would be like my friends from Yugoslavia, they had to leave because like one was Bosnian, like of the parents, one was Bosnian, one was Serbian, the children were mixed. They had to get out because everybody wanted to kill them.
Right.
They lived in Syria for 3 years waiting for their refugee status to be approved, and then they immigrated to the U.S., and that would be a typical process for a refugee family.
Yes. Now, this is very different from an asylee. An asylee is somebody who can show up at the border of the U.S., can actually apply at a consulate, or simply enters the United States somehow and then applies for asylum. An asylee, a potential asylee, has to prove some very specific things. It's much more difficult than proving you're a refugee. An asylee has to prove that their government is after them in particular, not just people like them,
so
but after
Julian
them.
Assange, Edward Snowden.
Right.
Definitely asylees.
But from the U.S. to elsewhere.
Well, okay. So
Assange is an asylee from, he's Australian, but the Swedish government was after him, and he wanted to get to Ecuador, and so that's why he's in the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
I think for both of them, there might be an issue with whether they meet some of the other requirements. You have to meet the nexus. Not only does it have to be the government that's after you, it has to be the government that is after you because of your race, your ethnicity, your religion, a membership in a protected social group. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Race, religion,
I thought there was also
nationality.
Something to where someone
Political
could be
opinion.
a political asylee.
I knew I was forgetting something.
Because they
political opinion.
definitely meet the political.
Well, it's political reasons, but what's the political opinion? So maybe not. They would have to say what exactly their political opinion was. I'm going to say probably, but it would be an issue. Usually when you look at political opinion, it's somebody who's a member of a particular party,
right,
or something along those lines.
So like during the Cold War, when visiting athletes would defect to the U.S., would that be an example of an asylee?
Political, their political opinion. Let me say a little bit more about the government after you. It has to be the government who's after you, or the government acquiesces, the government knows there's another group after you, and they very specifically choose not to stop it.
All right.
Or the government has lost control over that part of the country. For example, previously in Colombia, there were parts of Colombia that were controlled by the FARC. So the government didn't have control over those areas, so people could claim political asylum when they were from those areas because the government didn't have control over them. So there's some issue about the gangs.
And by the government, you mean the recognized central government. So like in Somalia, for instance, where there's at least 2, if not 3 or more sort of breakaway unrecognized countries from Somalia, where there's that, their government, but it's not internationally recognized. And then there's the recognized Somali government, where Somalia doesn't have a lack of government. Somalia has way too many governments.
Right. So the people who are fleeing the gangs in Central America, there is an argument that the gangs have sufficiently infiltrated the government there that they're actually working together, and that the gangs, at least in some places, are sort of a wing of the government at this point. There is that argument. However, here's the problem with a lot of their asylum claims. Their asylum claim is the gangs are after me to join, and I don't want to join. And the courts have been saying, in order to be persecuted because of your membership in a protected social group, the protected social group has to exist before the persecution. The persecution cannot create the social group. So if you're saying my social group is, I don't want to join the gang, and they're trying to make me join, that didn't exist before the persecution. So their asylum claims are failing. They're not a member of a protected social group.
There's more to this discussion, plus your calls and thoughts. 855-450-FREE. 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live.
From the third letter of Captain Mark. The Crown's observation conditions us to be dishonest with ourselves. Therefore, constant surveillance produces a society of constant deception. Honest communication is the seed of civilized conduct. To deny us this seed is to deny us its fruits. But the Crown's primary objective is to stifle free thought itself, to make its subjects incapable of dissent. Seasoned pirates have always encrypted messages and codes and ciphers, so intercepted transmissions were incomprehensible. But today the Crown possesses advanced tools of pattern recognition that document, profile, and predict our every move. Today, piracy requires hailing frequencies completely invisible to the Crown. We are tired of poltergeists in the static. Looking for a community of like-minded scoundrels, or just want some swag to let the Crown know what you think of it? Join the conversation at pirateswithoutborders.com.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
Your property and your family are precious. Protect them with Blink, like we have. Blink motion-activated HD cameras are wire-free, set up fast, and their batteries last up to 2 years. Blink's live feed option lets you monitor what's happening at home anytime, anywhere, from your smartphone. No contracts, no subscriptions, and Blink works with Alexa. Get your Blink camera system starting at less than $100 by visiting blinkprotect.com/FTL. blinkprotect.com/FTL.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What's up next? Visit the Liberty Radio Network program guide to find out at shows.lrn.fm. That's shows.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. In studio tonight, it's Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And we'll get back into the immigration discussion in just a moment, but I want to make sure that I tell you about Anarchapulco. It's going to have speakers like Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, Doug Casey, Larkin Rose, and more of the biggest names in the Liberty movement. Again, they're all going to be at the largest gathering of freethinkers, voluntarists, libertarians, and ANCAPs in Acapulco, Mexico from February 14th through the 17th, 2019 at Anarchapulco. You'll love the lineup of speakers discussing entrepreneurship, investments, politics, philosophy, health, sustainability, lifestyles, personal relationships for 4 days among the sun and beaches of a world-class resort. And of course, Free Talk Live will be there again. Go to anarchapulco.com, use code FTL to register and get a discount. Anarchapulco.com, use code FTL. So we've been discussing the differences between refugee and asylee as sort of a base when discussing the situation that is happening down, I guess, mostly on the border between the U.S. and Mexico, where Donald Trump has threatened to just completely shut down the border, which I don't believe he has the legal authority to do so.
I think he does.
He's also tried to say that anyone seeking asylum must go through an official port of entry, and he's trying to limit how many people can even do that. There was a judge that said that Trump couldn't strip asylum completely from migrants, and the DOJ, DHS, in a joint statement, called that ruling absurd.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's not completely stripping their ability to apply for asylum. He's describing the way in which they can apply. And actually, there is a section of law that says that the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security can create regulations for how people apply for asylum. And they are going through the rulemaking process, and they have published that in the Federal Register that they're going to be changing that rule. And in the meantime, the president has made a presidential proclamation under INA 212F that says that people cannot enter unlawfully and then apply for asylum. And I believe that the Supreme Court is going to uphold the presidential order. I was not at all surprised that a lower judge in the Ninth Circuit granted an injunction against it. I also think that when it goes to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that they will uphold the injunction. And then when it goes to the Supreme Court, they will actually side with President Trump and not with the Ninth Circuit.
Now, Jackie, I know that there was something that you wanted to ask, but before we get there, I'm curious. You said that you think that the president does have the authority to completely close the border and nobody can enter the country from outside the United States?
As long as it's temporary, yes, as an emergency power. And this was part of with the travel ban or the Muslim ban, if you will, was when it finally got up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said we have to let the president have emergency powers to keep anybody out that he says we need to keep out.
Well, he also wound up, by the time it got to the Supreme Court, he had modified it to where, in addition to the countries from the Middle East, it also said, oh, yeah, and by the way, Venezuela and North Korea.
It did get modified, but the bottom line was the Supreme Court says we have to let the president have emergency powers for matters of national security, and the judicial branch should not be interfering with that. And that's what the Supreme Court said.
So I have a quick question about temporarily closing the border. September 11th, I know that temporarily they diverted all incoming flights. I know there was a ground order that was issued by the FAA. Was it also the FAA that said to divert all incoming international flights to other countries? And then I don't remember what happened with the land border at the time because it was a while ago and we were all paying attention to airplanes. But wasn't there also a temporary closure at highway points of entries on the land border?
That I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. However, that would be a good example of the president using presidential powers. And it wasn't so much the Supreme Court liked what Trump was doing. Mm-hmm. It was simply the Supreme Court saying, we can't limit these emergency powers because emergencies actually happen, and it has to be the president's discretion to decide
also,
what's an emergency and what's
by
not.
him adding Venezuela and North Korea, it was then viewed as something other than a Muslim ban, even though he specifically said he wanted a Muslim ban.
But there was nothing in the rule itself that said this is a Muslim ban. We're keeping out Muslims, and the Supreme Court pointed that out,
well,
too.
The first two executive orders that he signed, the only countries on that list were countries that were overwhelmingly majority Muslim.
Right, but there's
so
also
it was
a lot of majority. Well, no, because there were also a lot of majority Muslim countries that were not on the list.
Right.
Indonesia.
Right. So, and the Supreme Court pointed that out as well.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about the asylum process and this thing called the credible fear interview. So when somebody shows up at the border, and right now they're processing them through ports of entry, the first thing that happens, and this is applying for asylum is a multi-step process, but the very first step, if somebody is apprehended or trying to come into the country to apply for asylum, is the credible fear interview, where they're interviewed and they tell their story, and then a government official decides whether there's enough there for them to proceed with an asylum case. So more than of the people who were being detained previously, people who were being detained attempting to enter the country who wanted to apply for asylum, we were seeing 98, 99% pass rates for the credible fear interview. But then when they finally got to their to the end of their asylum case, there was only about a 25% approval rate for the final asylum. So finally, Jeff Sessions, this is just very recently, while he was still the Attorney General just a few weeks ago, said, we're not going to pass people for the credible fear interview if what they're saying, their membership in a protected social group is that gangs were trying to recruit them, because Jeff Sessions said they're all losing their asylum claims when this is their protected social group. Why are we letting them pass their credible fear interview? So he gave orders for that not to be enough to pass a credible fear interview. That's fairly recent, and so I don't know what the new statistics are since that occurred. But the bottom line for the migrants is the vast majority of these migrants are not going to be able to get asylum. Most of them, well, there's a lot of them are economic migrants who are not refugees. But then even the ones that are fleeing gang violence, most of them are actually refugees. And the law is very specific that refugees cannot simply show up at the border and be allowed in. There's even a section of law that says the president isn't allowed to parole in refugees.
Just to clarify, by most of them, you're referring to the migrant caravans and the other people who are coming in out of Central America. And so you're saying that in that group, there's a mix of economic migrants, refugees, and potential asylees.
There's probably asylees, and we talked about this during the break. There's a number of them that are homosexuals and transgendered. They are probably going to win their asylum claims because their membership in a protected social group, their social group existed before the persecution.
But didn't not a member of a gang also exist as a group prior to the gangs persecuting them?
But that's everybody, and one of the aspects of a protected social group is it has to be sufficiently particular. So it can't be like the entire population that's not in a gang.
I'm a libertarian. I existed as a libertarian before something, so maybe we'll talk about it. Plus your calls and thoughts. This is Free Talk Live.
Silver has always been nature's very own antibiotic, and only one system allows you to produce an endless supply of nano-sized silver solutions right from the convenience of your home. Silver Lungs. With the addition of our unique lung delivery system, respiratory infections are targeted directly, where traditional oral administration simply cannot reach. This pioneering method also preserves the original particle sizes and delivers your silver solution directly into the bloodstream. See the Silver Lungs generator and lung delivery system at silverlungs.com. That's silverlungs.com.
We know you've had Dragon's Breath in the morning, but you've got to experience Dragon's Breath at night. Wolf Hill Ammo's Dragon's Breath, an incendiary shotgun round in 12 gauge, 20 gauge, and a 410 with an amazing muzzle flash and a fireball that launches up to 125 yards. Pure fun to shoot. At Wolf Hill Ammo, we love shotguns and offer the best specialty shotgun ammo on the market. Visit wolfhillammo.com to see our large selection of specialty shotgun ammo at great prices with flat rate shipping. wolfhillammo.com.
Are you a sneezer? If you're not, can you get close to one? I don't literally mean someone sneezing. Sneezer, as defined by marketing guru Seth Godin, is an opinion leader. When a sneezer mentions something, other people catch what Godin calls the idea virus. Seth Godin says some people are more likely to tell their friends about a great new idea. So identifying and courting sneezers is a key success factor for idea merchants. His book, Unleashing the Idea Virus, is the most downloaded ebook in history, and you can download the whole book free. That's how he's making his idea contagious. Click tips, tricks, and other stuff to help you cut through the clutter at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Radio is the most personal of mediums. I exist right now in your head. If you listen to Free Talk Live regularly, you know me. Free Talk Live is on more than 160 radio stations around the U.S. and has been downloaded on every continent around the world. Hundreds of thousands of listeners with ad packages from $600 a month to $6,000 a month. Imagine what we can do for your business, project, website, or idea. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free at apps.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live.
When there are cameras around, it doesn't make a difference. There were people with video cameras all over this event yesterday.
And it looked like these people were trying to get away, honestly.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were being shot.
These weren't people rushing towards the cop phalanx.
Nope.
That's right.
They were trying to get away.
And those batons weren't rubber like the bullets were.
They were either trying to get away or they were members of the news media trying to cover the event.
Right.
Police are supposed to be there to protect and serve.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, to be peace officers. And instead, they're creating war.
And, of course, the chief of police is claiming he'll investigate. What they're going to investigate, I don't know. It's going to be very difficult to identify the officers in this video footage because there were so many of them. Mm-hmm. There was an army of police officers out there, and every single one of them was participating in the attack on unarmed, innocent people.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM. Join the LRN.FM Discord for live chat 24/7 at discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. That's how you can call in and join us with whatever is on your mind. The us in studio tonight is Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And want to make sure that we thank John Ray, who is a silver amplifier. Now, you can join the AMP program, and you too will be individually thanked at some point if we have not already thanked you. Now, we do request $5 per month. Some amplifiers give more than that. Some give just the $5, and that's fine. We welcome all of it, and we are thankful for all of the amplifiers. But tonight, specifically thankful for John Ray. Now, the money that comes in through the AMP program helps us do three things. It helps us advertise, market, and promote the show, specifically to people that wind up making decisions to add us to more radio stations. We're currently on about 194 stations. We may have just added one, so we might be at 195 right now. But we could be on 250, 300 radio stations. It's not going to be something that happens overnight, but it is something that could happen, and your money helps us do that. AMP, A-M-P, amp.freetalklive.com. We have been discussing the immigration situation, specifically the potential asylees, and what some people are referring to as a group of refugees. Other people are referring to it as some kind of caravan. And the Trump administration not happy about a judge saying that Trump couldn't just wind up blocking all asylees from coming in. The judge wound up putting in some kind of...
He's not blocking all asylees.
Well, the claim was that Trump was trying to block all asylees. And the judge said, can't do that. And apparently there's an order from this judge that remains in effect until December 19th or until the court issues another ruling, according to the Financial Times. Now, Laurel, you were giving us a little bit of the background of what the difference between an asylee is, what is a refugee, and you also said that you think that the vast majority of the people that Financial Times refers to as nearly 9,000 migrants fleeing poverty, violence, extortion, and crop failure from Central America, you said that you think that the majority are not going to wind up being successful?
No, I think very, very few of them are going to wind up being successful. But also, let me take a second to go over exactly what the presidential order was. He didn't block people from applying for asylum. He said that if you're going to approach the country and apply for asylum, you have to apply at a port of entry. If you enter unlawfully, then you would not be able to apply. So it's not that nobody could apply. It was that people who entered unlawfully after the date of the order couldn't apply, that you would have to apply at a port of entry, or if you're flying into the country, then at the airport.
So prior to this, if somebody were seeking asylum, they could enter the U.S. and then apply for asylum within the U.S.
Yes.
And now it's changed that they can only apply at ports of entry like the border or international airports.
Okay, not exactly, because if you enter lawfully, let's say you have a visitor's visa, and then you can still apply. It's just that people who entered unlawfully couldn't apply for asylum.
Okay.
People who entered unlawfully after the date of the order.
And then it just occurred to me while you're talking about presidential order, I think one thing that gets people confused is what the text of the presidential orders say and what President Trump tweets is not always exactly the same thing, because he probably doesn't write or even fully understand the presidential orders, whereas, Twitter is whatever he spews out when he can't sleep in the middle of the night or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the presidential orders are usually very well written. So I'm presuming Mr. Trump he's not known for his writing skills. I don't think anybody's making that claim. So, no, he's not writing them. He's signing them. And the tweets can be quite different.
Yeah, because we have to distinguish between what the presidential order says versus what Trump tweeted. And Trump tweeted that he's just going to close the border.
Right. And, to some extent, and I'm not a lawyer, so Laurel, forgive me here, but it's my understanding that there is such a thing as legislative intent that winds up being considered. So the law could say X.
Right.
The legislative intent behind X is Y, Z, and 5 other things. And if that is in some kind of record, then the court does get to look at the legislative intent. So when Trump is tweeting these absurd things, then that becomes part of the record behind the order, even though the order might say something else.
Yes, it can be part of the totality of the record is whatever he's saying. Yes, exactly.
Let's go to the phones. We've got Zach calling in from New York. Zach, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Good evening. What I think is being missed in all this is if the wall had been built a year ago, we wouldn't be besieged with tens of thousands of economic migrants in the same way that we are now. Whereas if it was impossible to cross that border, people wouldn't bother coming in the first place, is the idea.
You do realize that there are giant fences and there is some kind of, physical barrier down on most of the border with Mexico, correct?
Zach, I have a question. How long do you think it takes to build a 2,000-mile wall plus whatever you're going to do for the river? Because if the wall were built a year ago is like saying if, you built a gigantic skyscraper in a month. Like, just how would the wall have been built a year ago that's not physically possible by construction firms?
It's a matter of will. It's not even a matter of money. If the cartel wanted a wall built across that border, it would be built by now because they don't play any games and they don't mess around asking people's opinions. They just do it. It would be done.
So I have a couple of comments on this. Most of the border between the United States and Mexico does not have any type of fence on it. A lot of it is they're just relying on the desert.
That's the problem.
And the desert's not stopping people. However, the place where the migrants are attempting to enter the country now, we've seen a lot of the footage, and there's a wall there.
Yes.
So the place where they're actually trying to enter, there's a wall there. So I don't know that this would be a good example of what the wall would be stopping, since the place where they're trying to enter, actually, there is a wall there.
Right. And want to point out, and Zach, thank you for the call, want to point out that the Berlin Wall, which everybody knows effectively kept people in East Germany, was built under the guise of keeping people out of East Germany. It was called, by the East Germans, the Anti-Fascist Protection Rampart.
And it was actually built overnight. As I recall from history class, like one day the West Germans woke up and there was a wall there.
There was a physical barrier.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily the wall that was built overnight, but there was, here's a bunch of barbed wire and other things that it's a physical barrier that you cannot go through.
They kept adding to it.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, just there. I mean, if you consider 2,000-mile long wall, and if you want it to actually be effective in any way, I'm still not sure what you're going to do with the Rio Grande, but 2,000-mile long wall, no, I don't think it's just a matter of will. Like, you need to have enough construction workers. You need to have enough stone. Like, you're not just instantly going to be able to quarry all that stone.
Right.
Like, it's just...
or steel or whatever sort of material that you're using, it's not just going to appear out of nowhere.
Even if you threw an infinite amount of money at it, and let's just pretend that isn't going to cause weird inflation, I don't think we have the economic resources readily available to construct a 2,000-mile wall in less than a year. So this whole if we built it a year ago, I mean, this is probably going to be a decade-long project if it gets built.
But I actually don't think that, even though I hear what you're saying, I don't think that defeats the argument that he was making, that if there had been a wall there,
that would not prevent people from escaping a place where they're economically impoverished.
And I think also my understanding was he was implying if Trump had been allowed to build the wall in his first year of office, and I'm saying I just don't see how that's physically feasible.
I don't think he could have done it in a whole year, but It could have been started sooner. So the saying, well, maybe there could have been a wall there.
I don't think that's what the caller was thinking, though. I think he thought Trump could have built one in 2017.
Even if there was a wall, that would not prevent people from trying to flee a country where they are economically impoverished and being targeted, by gangs. This is Free Talk Live. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Hearing a lot about CBD these days? Yes, but which CBD products can you trust? Which website can provide proper education about CBD along with high-quality products? The answer? CBDonly.com. CBD, or cannabidiol, is one of hundreds of compounds found in the cannabis plant and one that contains a variety of medicinal benefits. Many doctors are starting to recommend CBD to their patients as an alternative or supplement to some pharmaceutical medications. CBD is becoming widely known to relieve pain, inflammation, and anxiety. Unlike THC that is found in the plant, CBD does not have psychoactive effects. In other words, it does not give the effect of being high. All CBDonly.com products are lab tested to ensure the highest quality standards. Shop CBDonly.com for CBD oils, edibles, vapes, skincare, even CBD for your pets. That's CBDonly.com. And to receive 15% off your order on CBDonly.com, use discount code CBDNOW. Remember, shop for CBD products you can trust. Shop CBDonly.com, your CBD superstore.
Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and one with just the Edgington Post. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Boost Kid Essentials Nutritionally Complete Drink, providing your picky eater with essential nutrition and great taste in one drink. Visit us at kidessentials.com. To make sure your kids eat healthy, follow the 5-a-day plan. Serve 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit daily. Remember, a serving could just mean a piece of fruit or a half cup of veggies. If your kids are picky eaters, ask a nutritionist about other sources. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air, and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Possibly time for you and your thoughts if you call in now, and you can bring up whatever is on your mind. But we have, well, for this hour, been talking about immigration, specifically the difference between asylum seekers and refugees. And the we in studio tonight is me, Darryl.
I'm Laurel.
And Jackie.
And we'll get to the phones in just a second. But if you have listened to the show for a while, you know that earlier this month, I ran the New York City Marathon.
Yay.
Next year in October, I'm running the Chicago Marathon for the Ronald McDonald House Charities. Now, as a member of the Ronald McDonald House charity team, I need to raise some money, and all of this money goes to the Ronald McDonald House Charities, and there's a limited window of some matching funds. So between now and Giving Tuesday, which is this upcoming Tuesday, November 27th, up to $600 in contributions will be matched when you go to rmhc.fppradio.com. That's RMHC, as in Ronald McDonald House Charities.fppradio.com. Now, just $25 can help provide a dinner for a family when their child is in the hospital. $80 can give that family a room for a night at a Ronald McDonald House, and I've needed their services in the past. It's been about 17 years, and I'm very thankful that they do exist, and I'm hoping to raise $2,000, so everything helps. rmhc.fppradio.com. Let's go to the phones where we've got Larry calling in from Indiana. Larry, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
I guess this question goes to Laurel.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to, before I ask the question, one quick point. To the previous caller, I know you said if the wall had been built. Well, we do know that it's been at least a couple decades ago that the building of the wall was approved, and every administration and every Congress subsequent to that simply failed to appropriate the money to build it. It could have been built by now, or 10 years ago, matter of fact. But the question or the topic I'd like Laurel to address would be this. We do have lawyers in the United States that are addressing the constitutional rights of the individuals that are not in this country, but particularly those individuals down there that are waiting to come in. And I'd like her to either confirm or say it's not so, if we're looking strictly at the law, that the individuals do not have the constitutional rights of citizens or properly vetted individuals that have been granted either asylee status or refugee status. Once they are those individuals, then they are protected under our constitutional rights and provided due process. But as long as they're south of the border and not granted access here under one of those two justifications, they are not qualified to do due process, and they're not qualified for protection under our Constitution, as a lot of the lawyers down there arguing for their entry are saying that they are.
This is a standing issue. And for the audience, what standing means is, can you bring a case against somebody else? For example, let's say there are two parties that one of them does something bad to the other, and then there's a third party watching it happen and says, well, I want to stop that first person from doing the bad thing, so I'm going to sue him. And the government says, well, what's your involvement in this? You're not even here. You're not one of the two parties. You don't have standing to bring the case. Only the injured party does.
Let's say that I see somebody break into my neighbor's house, and then I decide I want to file some kind of lawsuit or something on behalf of the neighbor.
Right.
Unless they have given me some kind of power of attorney, I can't do that.
Right, exactly. So the question is, do the foreign nationals outside of the country, do they have standing to sue the U.S. government? And maybe they're an injured party, but they're not here. Do they have a right to something that they're not getting? So there's a big question of whether they have standing. And Sort of they don't, because the people who are actually filing suit are not the foreign nationals. It's refugee resettlement organizations within the United States. So there's a question of, okay, but are you the injured party? So how are you suing? And that's one of the issues. In the past, there was a case with the Haitians where the government was turning Haitians away, and it was refugee resettlement organizations that filed suit at that time. And the court found that they had standing. And I would have to go back and research this a little bit more, because I usually deal with people applying for immigrant visas at the consulate, and they don't have standing. And the person who has standing, if they want to bring it to a federal court, would be the petitioner, the U.S. citizen petitioner. If it's like a spousal case and you're petitioning for your spouse abroad, it's the U.S. citizen who has the standing and the due process right. So these foreign nationals, there's a big question of whether they have standing right. Do they have a due process right when they're outside of the country?
So I have a question. So you kind of addressed standing as a general legal concept. Larry specifically mentioned the Constitution, and one thing I've seen a lot of more constitutionally minded libertarians argue is that there isn't anything in the Constitution that grants the federal government the right to restrict immigration in the first place, and that the 9th and 10th should keep them out of the question entirely. So I know the federal government does a lot of things the Constitution doesn't authorize them to do, but would you agree that they do or do not, according to the Constitution, even have the right to regulate this?
That the federal government have the? Are you asking?
He did mention the Constitution. Where in the Constitution does it grant the federal government the right to regulate immigration in the first place?
It does mention naturalization, and a lot of people and Laurel, I don't want to necessarily put words in your mouth, but a lot of people that sort of make the argument that the federal government can do regulation of all immigration, it's based solely on the naturalization.
But that's whether or not somebody can become a citizen, whether or not they can simply come here, be here, live here, work here, study here, visit here, shop here. Where in the Constitution is the federal government granted the right to regulate that?
I believe it's not in the Constitution. However, there was an early Supreme Court case. It was back when some of the states were trying to regulate immigration on their own. Specifically, California back in the 1800s was trying to regulate immigration to California from other countries. And it went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you know what, this is federal government only. And I believe, and I'd have to go back and reread the case, but the federal government said that regulating immigration is essential to the sovereignty of a nation, and it's completely within the federal government and not by the states.
Yeah, I'd like to look at that case. I'm guessing it was the Commerce Clause they somehow squeezed it into. Isn't that where they put everything they don't have an explicit authority to do?
You know what? I'd have to go back and reread that early Supreme Court case from the 1800s.
Larry, any further thoughts?
Well, one thing. And we do have to remember, this might throw a whole other topic, not another topic, but it pertains to the same thing. We do have to remember when Arizona was trying to enforce, I don't know if you want to call it supplement or enforce the federal law. Back then, the Supreme Court said, no, you cannot do it. That is the federal government's responsibility under the immigration laws as established through a constitutional allowance to establish the immigration laws for the country.
And Larry, and thank you for the call. The thing in Arizona he was talking about was, what was that? SB 270, the Papers, Please legislation, where police, after any lawful contact, and Laurel, as a lawyer, you know that means basically a cop saying hi, they could then request proof of legal status in the United States of America. So basically, it would have allowed, and I think the courts were right in throwing that out, would have allowed police to just walk up to anyone, initiate conversation, and then say, oh yeah, by the way, give me proof that you're here legally.
Papers, please.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
But the federal government can deputize the National Guard in the various states to assist with immigration laws, but it has to be initiated by the federal government, not by the state.
Right. And what they were trying in Arizona was something passed by the local legislature to wind up saying, oh, well, we're just helping. See, we're trying to help. And they don't want our help. So therefore something. And then isn't it Arizona where there was a group of right-wing activists that were harassing the Native American Congress guy asking for proof that he was in the country legally?
Oh, yeah, that was a special kind of stupid.
Yeah, I forget if it was Arizona or New Mexico, but it was one of those southwestern states where Native American getting harassed by a bunch of right-wing conservatives because, well, he just looks different. We're out of time.
No one group has a monopoly on that sort of thing.
Yeah, we're out of time for tonight, but we're always online at freetalklive.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else